Perfect. When the governments of the European Union is checking whether something is going to the right place, well, that's important. Fantastic.
Let me just, because this is really strange. We lost one session this way.
Oh no, we definitely need some tech support.
It looks
Okay, good.
so. It shows to me that it is recording, but we definitely need.
But that was exactly the same last time.
Yes.
Okay, but it is now. It's a red button now. Okay, so everything will be recorded, and if somebody doesn't want to be recorded, please just take your picture off. But we will use it strictly just to share within the eco-civilization framework on eco-civilization media, and of course you are able then to use it for your own purposes. But please make sure you reference the source of this recording. So now I'm confident that we are recording and the word is yours. Thank you for this.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, we've got it all set up. Marina, before I introduce the speakers, would you like to say a couple of words?
Well, first of all, I thought that it would be maybe good, Violetta, if you could tell us a couple of words about the whole year of AI Challenged. So it was an absolutely fantastic initiative, which was initiated by Eco-Civilization and Living Cities Action Research Ecosystem Institute. And Amalingua, which is led by Ekaterina, supported this initiative in organizing several events. So Violetta, maybe a couple of words about the whole frame of this topic. Why AI, why now, why challenged?
Sure. Thank you very much. Basically, let me just say a couple of words about what is eco-civilization. Eco-civilization is now in the 7th year of active mode, and it's a global movement of people who care. It's really as simple as that. So we try to bring forward those people that are interested in particular topics and they want to engage with other people around the world to see how can we, in a peaceful manner, but with a very active civilian participation, make a difference in this world. So we are currently in 52 countries with the point of presence, with many very active curators. And all I can say is that I'm deeply grateful to everyone who response was positive to this call, and to everyone who's willing to sacrifice their own time to contribute to the higher level of global awareness on particular topics, and then possible next steps which lead to some actions. Why AI and why challenged? We've started with our sessions 5 years ago with focus sessions. Before we just had discussions on eco-civilization movements. And we realized that the particular topics cannot be just addressed in one session. And when we put forward Ubuntu as the first topic, we realized that there is such a richness in the way how people understand different focus topics and the way how they relate to, that we decided to continue. So the next one was circular economy, then was a year of water, and circular economy was the first attempt to put a book forward as well. But really the year of water and the book that followed, The Water, the Essence of Life, showed how essential it is that we capture the momentum of a mental, emotional, and spiritual awareness, and then have it as a new base for our future understandings of paths that could potentially lead towards eco-civilization. Of course, the topic of AI hasn't just happened because of a spirit of the moment. We realize that the world is somehow, especially the Western civilization, is somehow being calibrated around 3 major directions. One, which you hear very often, that this is the dawn of Western civilization, we're going to fall, and that's a normal consequence that historically every successful civilization had to face. The other one, which was very strongly proposed and now is really strongly driven, by the high-tech world is transhumanism. And transhumanism attracted my attention really quickly because I'm by profession computer engineer, and realized that we are very boldly, without any empathy and really consideration of broader systemic and understanding and awareness of where this different technological solution could potentially lead, jump on this train, where, of course, when you look it from the perspective, the concept itself, it's okay, and the new next generation of beings will be a positronic combination of human tissue and technological advancement. But when you really think about it, what is the end game of that? You understand that this should not be happening on planet Earth. It's okay, but go and do it somewhere else. Because planet Earth by itself is such a precious planet, such a unique planet in the constellation of planets in the universe, that we are such an exceptional being as part of this diversity of planet Earth, that we have to have another option. And I believe that's how the first ideas of eco-civilization started to emerge. And I'm by no means claiming that we are the ones who started it, but by all means, we were the first who started to address different topics in a very systemic and organized way. And within, of course, eco-civilization, by no means we're denying the important role of technology. And after we had the year of mental health, which we, throughout the year, we realized that it's a soft infrastructure of ecological civilization. And we challenged the concepts of leadership. It was somehow natural that we address the topic of AI, the topic of all advanced technologies, which we collectively, whenever we were discussing within the circles gathering around the eco-civilization concept, we saw it as a tool, as a partner in addressing some pressing issues, not to destroy the ecological system of planet Earth, but to actually add a meaningful value to it. And technology can help us a lot. And this is where it was absolutely necessary to bring forward now the topic of AI and bring much more broader perspective to the technology, its long-term consequences, as well as short-term gains that we can get, but in the perspective of long-term, meaning not allowing only brains to define our actions, but to connect heart and mind and really get this systemic, conceptual, long-term view in place. So that series of topics that we've been doing, and Katerina and also Marina and a couple of other our partners, we sat together and tried to define which are really the most challenged sectors of our coexistence and where do we need to bring this higher level of awareness to. So we've discussed already, as it was mentioned, geopolitics. We discussed the leadership. We discussed the systemic view of AI as a concept. And now we are here at education, which which I think is where everything starts. Because if we are not bringing the concepts of holistic awareness right at the beginning of a development of a young person, and constantly reminding in long life learning also adults of positive actions, but also very negative consequences, what have we done really for the humanity? So I can only bow to Marina and Ekaterina, who really, with a high level of responsibility, brought this mini conference together, where I'm all curious how this will evolve and what will we learn today. And I'm sure we will a lot from all of you. So back to you, Marina. I hope I brought a little bit, created a sense within which this topic is emerging and the high level of importance that is bringing not only to eco-civilization, but to the future of humanity as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Violeta. From our side, maybe a couple of words about the Healthcare Institute work. So what we are doing is we are supporting the reimagining of the role of citizens and place-based identity of people for the sake of supporting and contributing to the development of cities and places as living ecosystems. So through the lens of the ecosystemic approach, we understand that there are so many things which separate us, and AI may be just another topic which brings this fragmentation and dissent. And at the same time, I think that it's really important for us to harness the advantages of the technological achievements, but at the same time not to follow the trend of delegating the decision-making and responsibility and ethics and spiritual aspects of our lives to any technology, be it artificial intelligence or anything else. So in this case, I think that this topic is inseparable, and in my presentation, one of the first ideas is that AI is already a part of our lives, so we can't just say that it is harmful and we should somehow oppose or somehow protect ourselves from these new technologies, but at the same time, wisdom and discernment with which we use the technologies, especially in terms of relationships between each other, between human and communities, between us and natural environment, is as important as it maybe wasn't in any time before. So it's right time and right place, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share our ideas, to find new approaches, and to find the path of wisdom on how to integrate the technological achievements with inner wisdom, traditional wisdom, and our truly human capacity of being connected from heart to heart, from soul to soul. So let's discuss how this might be done and how the technological achievements might be of benefit for humanity and for the planet, not just as a threat or some risk. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Violeta. Yeah, this is one of, I think, the most important parts of AI development while we are at the very beginning of the AI training, and we need to discuss all these issues, and then not many organizations who are actually actively discussing them. So I am extremely grateful and honored to be part of this initiative and be able to contribute together with my colleagues to this topic. And Marina, thank you so much for bringing to our attention as well the importance of AI playing in their development of cities and towns. Because again, this is the future of urban development. So now let's try to focus. So if you've got all your snacks and all your drinks, whatever you need, we can begin with our speakers. Our speakers will be coming and going. Some speakers are going to stay for the entire session. Thank you so much. Some will be staying maybe for an hour or two. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them. Writing them in chat, and then we'll build it this way. We'll have chats, like 5 chats with our speakers. We have discussions, and then again 5 chats and discussions. So therefore, if you have a question for a specific speaker, then feel free to drop a question during our 5 chat and 5-side chat, and then we're going to have a discussion also answering your question. Okay. In terms of our speakers, this is such a cool bunch of people. We start with Mage Liu. Mage is applied AI strategist and AI operations lead in one of the leading AI social companion product companies in China. And Mage is not a typical tech person, I would say, because she's coming actually from film industry, then bringing all her creative writing experience to the stage and then developing really cool stuff that she'll talk a little bit about, and how it also ties up to young people and education, because I believe talking about social companions, we need to find the line between the companion and tool. We'll definitely discuss this. And then we also have Stuart Alsop. Stuart is already here. Stuart is founder of the AI Whisperer Club, and I believe we all get qualified as AI whisperers after this series of AI Challenge roundtables. He's also host of the Crazy Wisdom podcast. And while Stuart has recorded humongous number of episodes, over 600 episodes for the Crazy Wisdom podcast. I don't know how many hours you found actually to record all of these episodes, which is amazing. And of course, you hosted the AI Whisperers in Buenos Aires, because Stuart is originally from the States, but currently is residing in Argentina. So it has been running different events around AI Whisperers in Buenos Aires with 80 presenters and active group of 500 AI builders. So exciting. So then there's Arantxa Caballero. She's still not here. She's working, but she's joining us very soon. And she's actually a political advisor and AI governance specialist. And she also serves as Spain country chair for AI, data and cybersecurity with G100 Global Women Leaders. And I know that, we're also connected here to G100 Women Leaders Network. Anyways, then we also have Temitope Ogunsemo. He is representing Nigeria, Africa, but I believe today he's just flown into Qatar. So it's somewhere, not far away, let's say. And Temitope has been founder and CEO of Crystal Digital for so many years. I think already 16 years, and he's been developing and deploying customized solutions and software, and also dealing with AI in Nigeria, in Africa, and also collaborating with China in the past years, working as well with African entrepreneurs and seeing how to connect, let's say, African talent, especially tech talent, to Europe, US, and Asia. And then, of course, we have Dave Tech-Smith. Oh my God, Dave, you're already with us, but it's very late or very early for you. How late early is it?
It's just gone after midnight.
All right. So it's not that bad. Okay, because you are to present with us like in 3.5 hours or something like that. So would you like to present earlier? We can just reorganize it all. Anyways, because I was told, yes, that you would be presenting like one of the last ones, but feel free to jump in to any discussions. And if you need to go to sleep.
It's fine. Yeah. I'm actually keen to listen to everybody else.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Help me finish up at the end.
Wonderful. Yeah, because indeed, you are, for us, for our agendas, last speaker. Thank you so much, Dave. Dave is, wow, lifetime community, say, designer, facilitator, advocate, therapist, working across education and health and tech and policy, both in public and private sectors. And you're also a technological pioneer. You'll definitely tell us more about it. You're working with government think tanks, especially redesigning central government policy. And I believe it's so important today to see how we are putting together brilliant minds from different domains to discuss education. We have with you, people working in, let's say, social use of AI, that directly work in development of AI. We have people developing AI for different domains. And then we have policy making and then education. I know that among our audience today, there are a few teachers and trainers. I myself, coming from teaching and linguistics background, can contribute from different, I would say, different angles, different prisms. And that's what one of our, I think, challenges when we look at AI in education. We can't just look at it from only one angle, saying, okay, we are teachers here and we think AI is bad or maybe AI is good. No, we need to look at it from so many perspectives in order to come up with a reasonable conclusion how actually we're going to move forward. And of course, it also depends on the cultural or sociocultural context of particular country. That's why it's so enriching today, our discussion, to have all the speakers from different parts of the world to bring their perspective and to compare maybe what's considered quite good in one part of the world as absolute no in another part. So today we're going to find out, but now without further ado, I would like to invite to stage Mage Liu. It's time, Mage. Let's begin with you. Yes.
Hi, hello.
Wonderful. Well, Mage, I know it's quite not as late as for Dave, but it's evening for you in China. How are you? How is your working week going? Let's start with that.
Okay, so I actually work in the AI industries and I'm doing an AI application. I'm the lead of the operation team. So my normal working hours will be 10 to 10, like at least 12 hours per day. And I think this is quite common for all the uh, people who work in the AI industry because like internet companies itself was pretty competitive like between each other and also um, the I think internet company their main resources are the intelligent people. So somehow they will have built a whole system to let you do more because you are their most valuable resources. And also in this specific field, AI, uh, it like every day when you open your eyes, you will see some like breaking news in this field every day. So many new stuffs happening like in America, in China, in Europe, everywhere. And that means if you like follow up with all those newses took you quite a while, right? And also you need to decide if you need to do more actions or follow up more, give more strategies. And so I think the two, like the internet company itself and plus AI, the current situation combined together, it makes like everyone who I know work in this industry work at least 12 hours per day. So I've never seen anybody who have like somehow work-life balance. Not at all. We just have work, work balance. This is how we, yeah. So this is my normal life, and I think this more or less the same when I talk to the my fellow fellow people who actually work in America. I think they somehow like China, America. We have similar work ethics that we need to work hard enough, and we are so competitive. We always want to be the number one. Um, yeah. So this is my week. Hi guys.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, that's a reality. That's what we've been living through. That's true. Then, well, it can be really tough. Then, if we'll look with you at the AI development and then how it actually starts influencing education, what would be interesting to discuss now, Mage. We talk with you quite a lot about so many topics here around AI and how it's going to develop. But indeed, if we look at Chinese perspective, your personal perspective in general, what you've seen, if AI can do already writing and research, right, some of the models can do as well data analysis, and those are the skills that we and also young students have been trained to do for so many years. So, what's our competitive advantage, right? And what should schools and universities teach today's students, and how can we requalify recent graduates, because they've been learning for so many years and suddenly they come out and they don't know what to do.
Yeah. Okay. I think if I am the normal, like the students, like in the college or in the high school right now, I would I would like my teachers or professors to teach me the following things. So first of all, I need to be prepared to learn my full lifetime, because like previously we still have the sense of like, okay, this is elementary school, this is high school, and this is the university, or if I graduate, I graduate, right? But things will changes a lot, and always new stuff comes up, and the efficiency in each any field will become more faster and faster, which means like there always going to be new stuff for you to learn, whatever your field actually is, which means that like maybe for you, like you are still in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, if you want to keep up, you still need to spend more or less some time to study, and there always be new stuff for you to study. So I think the sense of actually spend lifetime learning is really, really important for in this era. So that will be the first thing I would like my teacher to teach me if I'm the current like student. And secondly, I think you need to be prepared to get overwhelmed every day, because back in school, like we have the examinations, we have like all those stuff, right? So life will be like this as well. Like it won't stop once you graduated. You will feel overwhelmed all the time because there will always be something new for you. So you need to actually build a new access, to build a new system to think. This is actually quite overwhelmed, and I've already witnessed some of my colleagues felt overwhelmed too much. And I think this is because they were not trained in that way before. Being able to work under pressure, being able to work in a really new field, and also like extremely like working in a new field every day, this is going to be quite exhausted, and I think it's going to take lots of like your mental energy. So be prepared and be trained for that. That is quite important. And also one more stuff, the students need to be trained to take responsibility. That is really important, because from what, in my perspective and what I witnessed, people who can actually deliver the results are still irreplaceable in the era of AI. So AI may not be able to deliver the results. So there still need to be a certain human being to take the responsibility for that. And we as human, we trust each other somehow more, right? So like just consider that like if there's only an AI, you would think that maybe there's some like hard tech that I don't understand. We are still tend to talk to some real human beings. That real human beings maybe not be able to do the things real human beings actually only deliver the results of the AI, right? There still needs to one person be responsible for that. So be that person, play that role, I think will be the only choice for lots of new graduates. But when I look back to my student time when I was in college, I complained a lot. I didn't know that I should take responsibilities, right? So, for example, if I was in a teamwork, I complain that like my team members who may be delaying, right? I complain that like this assignment like too complicated. I may not be able to deliver on time, right? I complain a lot. I gradually learned to take the responsibilities after I graduate and I actually take real jobs. But for the new graduates, I don't think they have like the good old time like me. So they will be, I think, tossed into this new environment and they will be required to be responsible for the results really quickly. They are not be able to, like me, like gradually grow up and become a responsible person. So I think this is going to be something quite different from the time I graduate to the new graduates.
Right. So lifelong learning, responsibility, also being able to deliver results, act under pressure. All right. When we look at it through a Chinese lens, when we know how hard students are studying and competing to enter a university, how crazy it is. So, how does it impact us right now? Like the students who are trying to enter Chinese university, I'm aware that there is a new government program implementing AI strategy for education, and that students, I'm not sure whether it's from directly from primary school or from secondary school, so students actually start interacting with AI and learning to write prompts. So if you know anything about that, please share. And also, yeah, from your perspective, how does it impact that carnage when they're trying to enter the university? Because now it almost becomes senseless.
This is actually a news for me. So I actually assume days will come.
Oops, we
This is
lost
China.
her.
This is
Yes.
China. That's okay. This is China. It's all good. This is, apps of the Chinese firewall. Maybe VPN goes out, whatever happened. Yeah, let me check. Yeah, she's saying, oh, I see. Yeah, so she's going to get shortly. Yeah, that's good. You see, I'm also communicating via Chinese app. That's actually working. Yeah,
What
but
is the
Rach
app?
is here
Is
with
it
us.
WeChat?
I have WeChat, but it's also Lark. It's
Lark.
an equivalent. Lark, it's an equivalent to Slack and Discord. So any kind of projects that are right now happening in China, you typically see with Lark. Also equivalent to our Google Docs would be Feishu. So if you open, let's say somebody gets in touch with you about any project via LinkedIn, and you're opening a Google document, you think that it's a Google document, but then you notice in the link Feishu, then probably this is coming from a Chinese company. Yeah, it's really cool how you can now identify the source of the project. But it can be also dodgy because when it's in Asia, it's a bit tricky.
Are you working in China too?
Of course,
Yeah.
I'm only present. It's like this, yeah, but it's good. We're also trying to learn and Tamitopa. Marina, do you see Tamitopa? Because Tamitopa is probably a man out in this. Because Tamitopa, can you drop a line here? I know that you're joining. Yeah, Tamitopa. Oh, you're from Mayowa. Yeah, Marina, can you see somebody raise hand? Because
I can.
Tammy's
I think that Violeta also has only has the right to bring the
Violeta,
into panel.
please, panelists, yes, because Gonzalo is joining from different account, because he's on the move. Africa is joining, so while China is figuring out the firewall, Africa is joining. Good. guys, while we are figuring out little technical hindrances, feel free to grab a glass of water, whatever you need. Yes. And who's Isha and Shariah? Violetta?
I just put
Oh,
Isha on as well. She's our partner from 8-1, and she's very much all her life she's been engaged in education. So I'm
wonderful.
sure she will make some comments as well. So I put everybody just to be able to also actively
Perfect.
participate, like Wiebke and others as well. So
It's all right. Wonderful. Fantastic. Thank you. So then, Tammy, we've got you. Wonderful. Good. So, while we're waiting a little bit for Mage, indeed, I would say if one of the comments for me would be interesting about AI as a companion or as a tool. So there is a very interesting study, and I'm going to show it with you as a link here in our chat. And I'm going to comment a little bit on this because we'll definitely pick it up with Mage, and then later on, if not with all the speakers, with some of the speakers and our participants. So this idea is coming from one of the biggest conferences on AI and education from 2025 that was held in San Diego. A little bit more than a year ago, and things have been shifting. So at the conference, OpenAI and Anthropic were present, sharing some of their insights and what a leap they've made. Past year, just crazy, just unthinkable, I'd say. But one of the biggest questions that was raised during one of the presentations, and Mage is here, and that's fantastic because Mage, we discussed this topic with you exactly. I'm talking about AI companion as a tool, AI as a tool or as a companion. So for all of you here, the question would be whether you think that AI is a tool or is a companion, and you can see if you follow that link, 4 quadrants. Wherever you move, you will see a specific scenario, and this scenario can be applied to young people in education. And I think it's very important for us to be clear by the end of the session today where we're standing and how we can get to the right quadrant or to the right quadrants, because I would say there are these 2 that could actually work for a better future. While you're figuring out that, and feel free to have a look and know, I'll actually pick up now with Mage. We still have a few minutes for our fireside chat, and then we will jump to discussion, touching upon a little bit of AI as companion as a tool, and also, some of the Chinese realities. So Mage, all good? Perfect? Can you say something? Can we hear you?
Yeah, sorry, on my phone just out of battery just now.
I
was
thinking.
listening. I was listening to all of you guys. Like I never noticed. So apology for suddenly disappeared.
We thought that it was Chinese firewall, but it's good. It's good. It's all okay. Wonderful. So I'll repeat my questions well for you, so then we can dive into Chinese reality in terms of education. So as we know with you right now, the Chinese government is implementing AI strategy for schools and for universities. And also we know the reality of the Chinese recent school graduates who are trying to enter the best Chinese universities and how competitive it is. So right now with AI, it's almost useless because suddenly we discovered that the current bachelor and master degrees don't contain necessary AI to use knowledge that they would be able to apply in their future jobs. And also, those skills that they've been learning, as we discussed in our first question, all the skills are becoming again redundant. So what's your perspective, and also what do you see now in China as an everyday user of AI and also builder?
Yeah, because this is news for me as well, right? So I will just share my own experience and perspective, right? So first of all, talk with Codex, Cloud Code, and Gemini every day. And while we are talking right now, there are some like Codex is doing my work like at the same time. So that means I have to handle multitask. Right? So this is going to destroy concentration. I will now be able to do only one thing at a time. But like when I was growing up, when I got education, I was taught that you need to concentrate on one thing, right? So I think this is completely different what you need to do in the real life and what you've been teaching. So like once the AI is actually applied and also introduced to the students, they will experience like a similar shock me. So we will eventually realize that like you have to handle multitask all time. So I assume the students will somehow me that like doing assignment A with Codex, assignment B with Cloud Code, assignment C with Gemini, and handling them all together all at once. I think this is going to destroy their concentrations as well. So I'm not sure, but I think it's quite beneficial for the people who have ADHDs. Somehow, like, will consider us like disadvantage, right? ADHD people who cannot concentrate, right? Like, will consider us disadvantages became advantage at the time, right now. And also, the students will realize eventually that they still have to think. This is my own experience, right? So sometimes when I manipulate the AIs, I have like really high expectation towards it. But like on a daily basis, I realize I still need to check the results. Right? So to be able to check their results, I have to be the one who understands it myself. So you still have to think. And also sometimes I still remember like back in last year, September, the model was not as smart as now. Sometimes it just got into loop, like doing the task A, like solving it, in the loop, solving it. So I spent like hours on one small issue. And I need to get the result. So, but the AI seems like it cannot do the proper thinking. So eventually, I'm the one who actually learn it. And like back then, I learned how to do that coding specifically, and then I solved the problem. So I'm the one. Kate introduced me like I was in the like film industry before, so I was a screenplay writer, and I don't know how to coding at all, and I still don't know how to do the coding. But eventually, I have to learn how to do that specific piece of coding by myself, and then we together, me and the AI, we solve the problem. So I think the AI will actually force the student to think eventually. So I think this is something you have to practice AI every day, and then you will get to know the truth. So if the teacher are worried that like the AI will let students not be able to think properly or like lose the ability to do the critical thinking, I don't think so. They will be forced to think properly still.
Indeed, indeed. This poses a very interesting challenge here. First of all, the students won't get dummier. Let's say they will still indeed have to think, and probably for some of them it will be like a big discovery, right? And then indeed, for us, even to learn to write prompt, we need to think, we need to understand. It also, I feel, shifts us to more like of analytical skills, because in order to write a rubric we need to understand different steps And then we need to figure out how, in a logical way, we go step by step while implementing a specific task. And what's interesting is indeed, Sud, I could see mentioned and raising that as well, like video games, and Mate, you were saying about ADHD, that indeed those people who got used to multitasking are winning right now. And I also think that those people who are multi-potential, meaning that they also called scanners here, meaning that they have multiple interests and they tap different domains, different industries, also have an advantage, because suddenly you need to put together skills that are non-technical from diverse industries and then marry them with some of, well, analytical skills or reasoning. I think reasoning is one of those heavy skills that we all need in the future, because, right, let's say one of the models can give you code or perhaps give you an answer, but you need to reason to weigh all the pros and cons in order to verify or evaluate the result, right? Again, create a rubric. And indeed, then it turns into some sort of like, I would say, process where we go together with AI hand in hand in order to solve complex problems, but AI is still, say, an assistant in this particular process. All right, Violetta, please jump in.
Thank you. I would actually like to bring attention to some really good comments in that people shared, and maybe just ask a question. What do you think? How games are impacting the way how the youth now thinks and trains and learn? But as well, Isha raises an important topic that she's concerned about one's capacities and opportunities to exercise a meaningful options and try and error by themselves. So too much is now given to AI to create all these options. How do you relate to that? And how do you think your education system continues to inspire in youth to be this creative thinker when they don't have this diversity of experiences behind them?
I actually have don't have a positive attitudes towards that question. So I think this is also the reason that I joined AI industry, because I don't think in the future the being a creator will have lots of like opportunities as we had before. The creator, and because AI could easily generate tons of new stuff with what we call content, right? So the people who are in this industry, and also the students who are interested in joining in the creative industry, their opportunities will be less. And that, I think this is actually a fact. But not only happening for the creative industry, but also I think it will happen to all different kinds of fields. And when I talked with ChatGPT back in 2022, that I talked with ChatGPT, I realized that like this is going to be a game changer. This is not something like VR, because VR seems really cool, right? But how do we really do it? Are we able to live in the virtual reality? Not really, right? But AI can definitely change my life, my career. So that is actually the time I made my mind that, okay, I will be the human traitor before everyone. And I joined this industry, and I supply data, and I sort of teach AI how to be a proper creator, right? So this is actually my job at the moment. So I, to be honest, I don't really know how like if you are a creator and if you are students, if you evaluate yourself, you feel that like you are just average or below the average, I think the future will be quite challenging for them. I'm not talking about the top student, the elite students who are really genuinely smart or who we kind with a like elite background. They are just fine. If you are the normal student and below level, and I think the future are really challenging for you because this in the future, I think only, for example, before like maybe 80% of the graduates they are able to get employed, but I think in the future maybe the percentage will drop increasingly. So this is quite a challenging stuff, and I actually feel that like some of you guys who are in this conference maybe have the similar insights as me, and I would really like to hear that what you think. So like as a like average students, average people, or we even in some field maybe below the average, how can we survive? This is a really interesting topic, and I think this is I look forward to hearing more from you guys. Yeah.
Thank you, Midge. One comment, when you mentioned like you decided to become a human trader. I don't think
Yeah.
that you are a human trader. I think if we compare who is on whose side, we know there are some visionaries who are not on team humanity. But I think with all your values and what you've been doing, you are still on team humanity. So don't worry, you are not a human traitor. Yes, and
Thank
I
you.
think it is very important for all of us involved in AI development to be the gatekeepers, helping to build the standards and also the boundaries, but how AI is used. And we've discussed so much with Violetta the standards, right? And the criteria how AI can be applied across different industries. And especially when we talk about education, it goes down to our existence and there is safety for children, for young people. And indeed, when we look with you at all the outsourced tasks that are right now happening, as you're saying, you're talking and Claude is coding, and then Gemini is doing something else, and then OpenAI would be like ChatGPT doing something else, and then there are other tools. So then what does it mean for you to be human, right? When intelligence is no longer uniquely yours, and especially when there is a student who is learning specific skills, then, well, how would they say that they're humans, or is it passing to transhumanism? So how do you define for yourself? I know that this question has been bothering you for a long time.
Yes. Because when I was educated, right, our society evaluates me in my intelligence standards, right? So I get into university, I have to pass the examinations. The examination was designed to test your intelligence. So our whole social, I think, like evaluation system are based on the intelligence. Um, Me, I used to be quite proud of myself because I went to like a good university. I was top of my class. Actually, identify myself as somehow a smart person. So also the people around me, we considered us smart people, and especially in the internet industry, uh, all like people from the top background, Harvard and also like Tsinghua, like the top universities, and they was like somehow must have been top one in their lifetime, right? They are all smart people. So, but right now, AI somehow are better than us in some specific field. For example, it never needs to stop. This better than most of us, right? We AI doesn't need to sleep. It can work all the time if you manipulate it properly. So this is something we can never compete with it. And with time goes, the AI will be more and more intelligent, right? So I witnessed AI back in 2022 until now. I actually witnessed it became more and more intelligent in creation and also in like daily job. For example, data analysis, researches, right? So this is something happening right now. So how do I identify myself? How do I feel that like I'm still a human being? How do I evaluate myself? Because I can no longer apply the common intelligence evaluation system, apply that to myself, right? Because if under that evaluation structures, no, I'm no better than AI. So I feel that like the feeling or the feeling itself, be able to feel loved, be able to feel empathy, be able to feel deeply connected between you and your colleague, your parents, your loved ones. This feeling actually make me feel I'm still alive. And I don't think this is the ability I will always have. And I still think with more like the developments of the AI, um, the more people need to feel connected, to feel loved, to feel that like we are still in a community, we are connected to each other, right? Under the same sky, we breathe together. We are all humanities. So they identify humans. And I know that like there's so many tensions worldwide, right? Like also because the AI technology development, people think that like maybe China and America, we are like a rivalry somehow. But I can see that in the future, like AI will be the problem of all human beings. And under AI, we are all connected and we will be linked and also connected somehow, I think in a short future. So I think it's time to say that like, even though we are new to each other, but I love you guys and share my love to all of you. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Violetta, just a second. Yeah, what I feel it's important here to highlight that indeed standard IQ tests probably will become irrelevant. But Misha, as you mentioned, emotional intelligence, then cultural intelligence, social intelligence. So such words as empathy, feelings, emotions. So all of those is coming to the forefront. And if we train students and school children more to listen to themselves, to their bodies, to their emotions, to their feelings, we'll be able to, well, preserve this feeling of being human. And I know for a fact that more and more schools are implementing mindfulness programs, helping children to be in touch with their emotions and feelings. And this will be also one of the crucial points, yeah, in the future. Yeah, Violetta. No? All right. Okay, good. I see that we have a lot of communication happening in the chat, which is fantastic. I love those guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sharing your thoughts. I see that we're talking about here video games and also, yeah, cooperation and competition. Indeed, indeed. And then in terms of the creativity. See Diane is sharing that now kids pick up a stylus and create beautiful digital art, and soon they will prompt to do the same. True. I would also say, I think nothing, when we talk about true inspiration, nothing will substitute this inner deep feeling of coming up with something, the epiphany sense. So when we say, oh yeah, maybe you can write a poem, just write in a prompt, or maybe you can write a letter, write in a prompt, or you can write a book or essay, right? So something, let's say, creative. True, but people steal from themselves this particular inner deep feeling of, say, contemplation, content, satisfaction while coming up with something, while creating something. So for me, that particular feeling when, let's say, words for a poem are dawning on me, this feeling can't be substituted with a prompt. No matter what, I will continue writing on my own because that's how I feel. And if I ask a prompt to write something for me like this, it will be empty. There is a big difference in that. And maybe somebody is going to argue with me, but that's, let's say, my personal experience. And I think students who continue learning arts and their creative industries will stick to their, let's say, instinct, their intuition while writing something. And their AI created art will become more and more labeled as fast food and also AI slop. We see it more and more, AI slop, and we can actually notice it now as well on platforms such as Netflix, where suddenly a CEO, probably it was written by AI. And this brings us back to education, because where we have with you, say, literature, specific language and literature, where students have to write essays and express their thoughts, their reasoning, we can also already tell the difference between work written by a particular student, maybe as teachers will already know their style, their thoughts and preferences, and then as well something written by AI. Of course, you can train an AI model to write in your style, but still it's not the same. If you look at it, still it's not the same, because it may pop some outrageous ideas inside, let's say, your essay that would actually be against your own reasoning, your own worldview. And I think, yeah, it's important to kind of take it into account. Yes, Mitch, please.
Actually, want to add one more point based on what you just said. Being able to express yourself properly, that actually became more and more important, because right now, all those smart people who are doing the AI trainings, they are tend to train the AI to be able to talk to people in the natural language, right? But natural language itself is actually I think the result of your critical thinking, right? So which means that like if you are not able to think properly, you are not be able to express yourself properly, then you will not be able to use AI good as others. So literatures, critical thinkings, like the natural language, like itself, became more and more important. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, this is a good, say, overall summary of what we need. Indeed, reasoning, critical thinking, then the ability to express oneself, right? Saying, perfect. I think this stage, we can move from China to Africa. Mage, feel free to stay and participate in discussion. Thank you so much for your contribution. It's been marvelous. And now we would like to hear from Tammy Topper. Tammy Topper, please tune in, switch on your camera and microphone. Love to see you.
Yeah, great, Dr. Catherine. I'm here, but can't seem to be able to. I still haven't been allowed totally in. I've not been given the privilege to share to share. So
Can you check Violetta?
Yeah, I'm checking, but it's open.
Yeah, but I can see. Okay. Stay as.
Yes.
Okay.
Something is happening.
Yeah. 1 minute.
That's okay. Well, we are figuring out here technology. It's okay, guys.
From
Yeah.
our side,
Let him rejoin. Yeah, fantastic, Violetta. Yeah, indeed, a wonderful discussion. So while we're figuring out, some of technical parts here, guys, feel free to reflect and also share in the chat some of your thoughts. I see that been like quite a lot of interesting conversations. Oh wow, you actually joined from how did you do that? Suddenly,
I don't even know what happened. I think that initially it didn't give me the access to be able to speak, and then later when I got the access, it also didn't give me the access to be able to open my video. So, but I think we're here now. So this is like you mentioned, just something happened about China. I think now we're talking about Africa and Nigeria, but I do not completely agree that it has to do with a continent issue. I'm currently in the Middle East,
Qatar.
so you
In
can't
Qatar.
tell me, so you can't possibly tell me that it's something that has to do with something in Africa.
No. I was not implying that. But good. Just funny. Yeah. Feel free to rename yourself if you can, and if you can't, so yeah, we'll have
I'm surprised why it's showing. Okay.
This is so funny.
I didn't even see that. Okay, I'm doing that now. I'm doing that now.
Fantastic. Wonderful. All right. Well, Temitopa indeed is renaming himself. Yeah, Mage, you're looking great now in horizontal, so don't worry. Temitopa, yes, fantastic. Good. Okay. As you're it's good.
Okay.
Wonderful. As you're joining us here now, pleasure to see you. Pleasure to have you as part of our conference, our roundtable. So, how's your week going as you've been working on your projects from Nigeria and then going to Qatar, and also, as far as I know, collaborating with China and collaborating as well, with other companies, other countries.
It's been crazy in the last 1-2 months, moving around different continents almost about the same time. So I'm here 1 day, 2 days. The next minute, I'm off to another continent, and I'm spending just about a day or 2 or 3, and then I'm moving to another. So it's just been crazy. But of course, AI. We're hoping that AI can actually make some of this thing a lot easier for us. So it's okay.
Wonderful. Well, good to know. Looking great. So, jumping into our discussion, as you've heard a little bit what Nature is talking about. When we look with you at the case of Nigeria and the African continent, right? You can also dive a little bit in Middle East, depending on the kind of practical knowledge. So, what about AI education now? Because you've been developing all the technology without Silicon Valley, without, big minds that are attracted to Silicon Valley. You're one of the most successful entrepreneurs in Nigeria. So, how do you see now the state of AI in education? Because again, at tech in Nigeria and on the continent of Africa.
Well, first, let me localize it.
Yes.
I'm from a place from a Black nation that is seemingly look like is the biggest and the most populous Black nation in the world, with a population of about 250 million people. So I think that if you if you switch it on the other side, yeah, Silicon Valley has almost everything that he needs to move, not just Silicon Valley or not just the United States of America forward, but of course, they're developing different solutions that is affecting a lot of things globally, right? But there is a need for us to be able to tell our own story, first because we have the population, second because culturally, I think we are different. And sometimes when the Silicon Valley designs a solution, they design it for the West. And then by the time that solution comes out, someone in Europe, in China, in America are able to adapt and adopt that technology easily. But for us in Africa, it's easier for someone who is here to look deeper into our system, our culture, look at the challenges and see how we can provide solutions to our own problems. Because more often than not, when someone in Silicon Valley develops a solution, is thinking the West, right? But of course, I think that AI has changed a lot of things. And what I have always said at every fora when I have the opportunity to speak is that technology is the biggest leveler. He's a respecter of nobody. I think that Africa as a nation, as a continent, didn't have the opportunity to enjoy the industrial revolutions from the first, maybe the fourth and the fifth. But I think the major opportunity that it has now is technology. And because technology is a respecter of nobody, and you didn't need some of the skills that you need, some of the skills that were prevalent to be able to run either the first industrial revolution or the second or the third or the fourth industrial revolution. You didn't need those skills and those education, right? But now we're in a generation where with technology, you don't even need to go to Harvard, go to Yale, or go to Oxford to have certain skill to be able to perform and develop solutions that will change the world. So I think that this is the first time that Africa is having that huge opportunity to be able to show themselves. And if you look at what the World Economic Forum, the projection of World Economic Forum from time to time says that the future workforce will come from Africa, and they've always said that. Now, for us as a country, as a continent, if you say the future of workforce will come from Africa, then what are you even saying? First, Nigeria in Africa is the most populated country in Africa with over 250 million people. So indirectly, I think you're talking to Nigeria. And then again, over 70% of our population are predominantly the youth between the ages of 15 and 40. So, and when you talk of the future work or the future generation, the future jobs and the likes, it's the younger people that would do those jobs. They are the ones that are very daring, that are used to this technology, that are able to adapt themselves and provide a lot of solutions for the future. So I think that the future is Africa. And then we as an organization or as a person, we're looking at these narratives, looking at these indices, the patterns, and we're thinking that how do we then position ourselves to ensure that we had a very relevant person or people in the very near future so that we can provide the solution that the world needs, to make the place a better place. So I'm excited to be here, Catherine, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this introduction of the African continent. And indeed, I think it's so important to highlight these opportunities that are rising with the AI development. So here the question would be about AI, where the AI is right now in Africa creating the gap when we talk about school education, because you worked so much in K-12 say domain. So what's happening there? How does AI reduce or widen the education gap? Yeah, in Africa, in Nigeria, and then let's say in Africa, and then maybe in the West, because I know that some models are being right now, say, trained on some of African students. Some models are being as well distributed in particular countries, but there are also local models that are being developed. And that's also quite interesting.
Thank you, Catherine. First, I'll tell you, a lot of people are currently scared, not only in Nigeria, not limited to Nigeria or Africa, at the rate in which the AI is going. And some people are thinking that AI will change almost everything, the way we learn, the way we eat, the way we do our business, the way we live our lives. But guess what? I think that AI will not change teachers, right? But AI would amplify and make teaching a better profession, right? And that's one thing that people have not realized, because in terms of motivation, you still need a teacher to teach or to motivate the student or the learners, right? That's one part that people are not thinking about. But of course, if you ask me, I will tell you that AI is already changing the teaching profession, and there are conversations around whether some courses will still be relevant maybe in the very near future. And when we're looking at it, whether or not, for instance, and we've seen what AI has done, even up to the most regulated professions like the medical field, because the best of procedures are done even by AI as we speak today. In the areas of accounting, people will go to read accounting. Now, people were asking, I was at a forum where conversations were held, and people were asking if professions like accounting will still be a very good profession. Even things like accounting, finance, computer science, because I'll come back and tell you, but even computer science will still be very relevant in the very near future, because AI just looks at the patterns, looks at the data, and provides more accurate results to a lot of things. Before now, the Sage, some of these tools, before they came up, accountants were almost everything. And then when some of these things came up, they were like, are you sure these things are not going to change, or they're not going to send these people out of business? But now it's increasingly even becoming even much more difficult, because you see the way the AI has been built and comes out. I mean, the result that comes out of what is being done is more accurate than what even the tools that has been developed before now that they're currently using. Now, if you switch it to Africa or Nigeria, like I mentioned earlier, culturally, when someone in Silicon Valley or someone in Europe or in China develops a solution, first they're developing it for maybe the West, for instance. But our language, our culture, it's something that we need as entrepreneurs to try and embed into wherever it is that we're developing. And like I also said earlier, I mentioned courses like computer science. Computer science now, we're even thinking whether it will still be relevant maybe in the very near future, because the way the AI have really evolved, even AI are beginning to now even teach AI on how to interpret things. So things are going very radically too fast in an exponential manner. People go to school to go and read Python, to read Java, to read. all of these things are maybe not going to be relevant maybe in the very near future, because with the way AI is going, something that can take maybe an average programmer to write a code, maybe 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days, in 20 minutes now with AI, you're able to develop some of those things. So we're looking at these patterns, and then we're telling ourselves, where are we? What should we be doing? How do we then position ourselves so that we are relevant? Just recently, myself and team members partnered with an organization called 01 Technology. I don't know if you know them. 01, I think, is in France. They're in quite a few countries. In France, they're in UK, they're in Morocco, I think they're in Asia, and so, but they came to Nigeria for the first time. They came to Africa. We brought them to Africa, and O1 prides itself as #1 AI specialist trainer globally. And we engaged them. We signed a deal, and then we brought them into Nigeria. But the aim of what they are to do majorly is to try and train at scale. I mean, the world is changing. Everything is AI now. Now, how do we now prepare ourselves for the future? An average AI technician specialist in the US will probably charge maybe about $300,000 a year. If you go to same profession, if you cross India, you probably get it for maybe about $100,000, a good global specialist. So now what this organization is trying to do, and what we are trying to do with them, is to see how we can train at scale and then make that from 300,000, because we have the numbers to see how we can train and provide same service, quality service, world-class service, to provide it for as low as $30,000. So you see the way things are changing, the way things are moving in a very, very exponential manner. And that's why we also, as a country, whether we're providing the solution in China, whether it's going to be Europe or it's going to be in the US, we want to also try and put ourselves in a position where we can provide this service at scale and as cheap as possible. And that, because if you look at, I was still in China a few weeks ago, and one thing that China takes advantage of, one of it, first, they have the industrialization, they're the second to none. And then apart from that, in terms of population, they have everything. So they're taking advantage of that population, and then they're doing things at scale, because of course the equality of scale. If you can provide to 1 million, what will take you to provide to 1 million, probably spend almost the same amount of money if you're providing it. So to maybe 100, and then if you are doing to 1 million, then you can then reduce the amount of. So that's what they're trying to do, and that's what we are also looking at, especially because of what the global indices is talking about, talking about the AI, how AI is changing things. And we think that the people who are going to be very relevant in the very near future, not that AI would completely change or replace human beings, but the people who are going to become very relevant in the very near future are people who are also able to interpret or use AI. Even if you think about the customer service now, talk of sales, AI does better job, but of course AI will not replace human beings, right? But the result that comes out of what the patterns that AI have seen in terms of selling things to people, you see that it's a little more accurate than every other thing, but of course AI will still not change almost everything, so we are looking at all these continents, and then we're trying to see how we can ensure that we are relevant, we're ready for future. So we are the future already, and then trying to position ourselves in the ways that the World Economic Forum have already projected it.
Interesting, thank you. So here a few thoughts and follow-up questions. You mentioned a very interesting position about teachers saying that AI won't replace a teacher, and that human beings must stay teachers, not AI, saying that human teachers motivate students, help them to understand better, help them to connect to the subject. In this case, this humongous number of AI apps, AI tools that are popping up on the ad tech market. So what is their relevance? How would they fit the education? And then what do you think about some of the decisions of governments? Well, we just discussed a bit in China and also in other countries who trying to impose AI use in classrooms. So what is your take on that?
So I said the AI will not replace teachers, but of course AI would enhance teaching. I'll give you an example. I had my master's degree in University of Salford in the UK. And what we were using, one of the tools that we were using for anti-plagiarism was Turnitin. I'm sure a lot of us know what Turnitin is. But guess what? We in Africa, or maybe in Nigeria, developed a particular system that before now, you used to know that I used to provide solutions for the K-12, all the basic and secondary schools in Nigeria. But I moved some steps forward by now providing this same service or bigger service to all the tertiary institutions in Nigeria. And then one of the first things that was done was we developed a solution called the Beneficiary Identity Management Service that puts almost every student, as long as you're a Nigerian student, in tertiary institution, whether you're in the university, whether you're in the polytechnics, whether you're in the monotechnics or you're in the colleges of education, he gives you one identity. So on that identity was provided, the identity platform was provided by our organization. Now, on that, the aim was to create an ecosystem where you can reimagine education. You can put everybody on a platform, and then you can think about education again. COVID happened, and Nigeria was one of the most disadvantaged. Maybe Africa was one of the most disadvantaged in the world because we were not prepared for it. And then we're thinking that it was a good opportunity that COVID happened, and which, I mean, it was bad that it happened, but it was also a good opportunity not to miss by changing a lot of things. So we developed an ecosystem that can put everybody together. Now, on this ecosystem, on the learning management solutions that was embedded into it, that we developed, that was embedded into it, we created our own Turnitin, right? Our own Turnitin called Eagle Scan. Now, the reason why we did that is because, of course, in the US is already using maybe Blackboard, using Turnitin, but because we wanted to tell our own story, we wanted to read our own language. Some people even teach in Africa or in Nigeria with the local dialects, and because we wanted all of that to read all of it, so we had to develop a local solution that would understand the way we do almost all our things. And that was what we did. Of course, if you go to China today, you see everybody using WeChat. I'm currently in Middle East, in Qatar. Before now, they would say you can't even use WhatsApp in Qatar, or you have to use a VPN to be able to use WhatsApp. The other time I was in Dubai, they had their own local platform. So I think that what we are trying to do is to try and adapt and then develop our own homegrown solution that can solve our own problem, that can tell our own story, that can read our own patterns and provide solutions for our general problem. And then once that is done, then we can then export it from maybe just from Nigeria to maybe even to our continent, because our situations are similar, right? So whatever works in a country like Nigeria will probably work in South Africa, will work in Gambia, will work in Sierra Leone, work in Mozambique, Morocco, and the like. So our aim is to ensure that we provide our own local solution. Of course, we're looking at what the West is currently doing. what they're doing in China. From time to time, I move in and out of China to develop one or two things, maybe hardwares. And of course, I'm also not too far from Silicon Valley. Almost every other year, I go there. I also go to Harvard Innovation Labs to see what they're doing there. So we're looking at these patterns and looking at what the West is developing, and we're seeing how we can adapt or how we can develop our own to provide, to solve our own local problem. I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Tammy. That's wonderful. Just a lot of thoughts, and I would just say that Africa is charting forward, which is amazing. And we're looking forward to seeing this local solutions that you just mentioned, because this is what's interesting, right? As Major also commented in chat that AI models currently performing really bad in other languages than the main, let's say, the main 10 languages, or let's say the most popular languages. And that's amazing that you've been developing models and tools in the local dialects, the local languages, because that's what indeed we need. Because again, one of the biggest issues for models getting trained in, let's say, minority languages, because the corpus never gets enough data, right? Maybe there are not enough speakers, right? Just not enough data grow the population. And that's a pity, because we'd love to, me personally as a linguist here, we would love to preserve as many languages as possible. And AI actually gives us this amazing opportunity to preserve all these endangered languages, but under the condition that we have enough data. Right, Violetta, please jump in.
First of all, thank you very much for this really rich and very engaging conversation. But I'd like to raise the question that was posed in the chat by Shuraya, and I think it is it's asking Timitopo to respond, and it says, how can educators and parents effectively integrate AI-driven learning tools while preserving the essential role of human interaction, family relationships and dynamics, emotional development, creativity, critical thinking, and student social, ethical, and moral growth? What do you do to keep that as well evolving besides the technological advancements?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just as I mentioned, like I said, AI would not change the teachers, but I can tell you that AI it's already changing the way we learn. For instance, I go to school and I'm trying to reimagine education. There's so many things that I shouldn't even be learning. But you spend so much time learning everything that would never be relevant, that will never be relevant to you. So what AI is now doing with a lot of tools that are coming out is to bring out tools that would help you, or that will help the students, will help the educators, even the parents, to understand what needs to be learned and what is really relevant, because that is where I think that we have missed it. Now, in the other area, which is the teachers, the teachers are now going to be there, of course, to give the moral support, to give an encouragement. Also, you will also help them in preparing or even teaching better, because of course there are going to be better tools that they can use to even teach more relevant things to the educators. So I think that, like I said, AI will never replace teachers, but of course, the teaching patterns, the style, the AI is already changing that, and there's nothing we can do. And I can tell you that it's a good thing that has happened to us, because a lot of us spent 3, 4, 5 years reading a lot of things that there's nothing we're doing with it. Meanwhile, we spend that quality of time just wasting that. I don't know what I would say, wasting that time. Meanwhile, we could have spent that time doing something better. I'll give you an example. In the law department, for instance, you see in Nigeria, I think in the UK, you go to law school for, I think, about 3 years or so. In Nigeria, you have to be in school for 5 years, and then you go to law school, and then you go to serve the country. Averagely, you would have spent maybe about 7 years before you become a lawyer, a certified lawyer, maybe in Nigeria. Now, when you now leave and then you start to practice, you have humongous files and cases that you have to read sometimes before you are able to perform in court. But guess what AI has done? AI has simplified all of that. With AI now, you don't need to read all of those cases. You don't need to represent. Just put in the case number on there, and it's something that will take you 6 months. Now it can take you 10 minutes to find all the information that you need and aggregate them to you and make you have a better understanding, so that when you're making a judgment or you're defending something, you're in a better position because you have more information. The same thing is what's currently happening in our education, in our educational system. You have different tools that people are now adopting and then adapting to change a lot of things and a lot of ways, the pedagogy in which we learn. People are even saying now that peer-to-peer learning is even better, because with peer-to-peer, it allows for collaboration. So, and that's what AI is also currently even doing, putting AI tools that can help you to have a good peer-to-peer collaborative work. Unlike just the conventional teaching method where you have a teacher who just teach from morning to night, and then he doesn't even give you enough time to reflect and also for you to give your feedback. But with AI now, with the tools that are available, once you learn a little bit, it also gives you different ideas, looks at the pattern of the things that you have read, and is bringing different patterns and different feedbacks for you. So you're not just thinking so wide, he's streamlining it based on what you have learned, and he's giving you different options. So the tools are here to stay. I think it's the best thing that has happened to us. But of course, we can't change the teachers who are going to be there to motivate, who are going to be there to guide and support the students and also the parents.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Let me challenge this a little bit. Because
go
in the
ahead.
pursuit for profits and constant technological development, it's really easy to imagine that there are no teachers, because we already have that in place. There are many educational systems that use AI and replace teachers. Okay, so my question here would be, all AI so far is been learning from people. Yeah, all the cases you're talking about were created by people. So AI is learning based on human experience. So once this runs out, where will AI be learning from, or starting to create constant permutations of the same data, and eventually everything might become the same? So how do you see to continue with opportunities for creativity that humanity brings to the place and brings to the system, while at the same time maximizing the output from a technology that is learning from humans?
Yeah, before now, I'd mentioned that at the rate in which AI is going, AI is already even learning from AI. That's how fast AI is going. So like you have said now, all the things that AI is currently doing in education, it was learned from human beings, from teachers, from educators, from patterns and stuff, right? And people are now beginning to ask, so by the time he finished learning everything, and then he has everything, so what would then happen on that AI? Who would AI be learning from? AI is already developing solutions and patterns that learns from itself. So
Is it really, or is just reusing the material, learning from each other, machine from machine, but just reusing what has been already out there?
I think is looking at different patterns and things that haven't really happened, or some similarities, and then relearning different things again. I think that's what, because almost everything. And like I said, people who are going to school to go and read computer science now, who are going to be learning how to code, there is no need to go and spend 5 years learning how to code, because AI will do everything. Now, once AI does that thing, you now need another AI sometimes to actually interpret or to evaluate what that code has been done, because it was AI that was used to generate it. So you have another AI looking at another AI, and it will continue like that. To be honest, nobody knows where we're going, and that's the honest truth. Nobody knows where we're going. But the thing is, we can also sit down, because things are moving in a very exponential manner, right? But the only thing to remain relevant is to reinvent ourselves as many times as possible, so that we can be relevant and we can be able to use these tools. And I think that will be the very near profession in the very near future. AI instructor, AI specialists are able to analyze it. Not people developing AI. People are able to interpret it. So it's really going to be a very complex. The future is going to be very complex with AI.
Wonderful. Well, I believe, Violetta, your question is naturally transitioning us from Temitope to Sud. And I think, Temitope, you ended what you were saying about AI trainer. Eventually, Sud is saying it's a universal verifier. It's humans becoming AI verifiers. That's probably indeed the future, is one of the, let's say, emerging jobs. Yeah, and if you have a look in the book, which is called Atlas of Emerging Jobs, years ago, 12 years ago, a long time ago, I was part of Global Education Futures Forum and Future Skills discussions, where we created the very first Atlas of Emerging Jobs. And Global Education Futures map of challengers and opportunities 2035. You can Google it, you can find it. So there were discussions about AI trainers, as you're saying, or say human verifiers, and well, people working closely with AI as trainers, or say data providers and then verifiers. So you, the concept, let's say, is not new per se, but right now we're actually living through this. So if like 10, 15 years ago, it was still feeling like far away, kind of fiction, science fiction. Now we're actually living through this very experience. And indeed, as you're saying, we're not sure where we're going to end up. There are a few scenarios, but I think it's important for education, for parents, for teachers, to treat AI as a tool, not as a companion. That's how we were starting our discussion today, whether AI is a tool, whether AI is a companion, and whether it's eroding or strengthening relationship between human beings. And as long as we treat it as a tool and use it to strengthen relationships, like human to human relationships, then Violetta, I think we will be able to preserve the magic of this planet. But indeed, it is very tricky. Thank you so much, Temitope. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to go, whatever you prefer. Yeah, because we will be moving continents right now. Thank you so much for sharing all the insights. Super interesting. And I'm sure when we're going to compilate all the insights together, we're going to have such a richer outline of topics there and thoughts. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good. Then, Sud, you're just perfectly, say, taking over this particular, well, feels like a marathon, discussing, yeah, fantastic data. Well, let's start with you. After we'll come back to synthetic data, but after talking to so many amazing speakers and their thought leaders, what do you think they don't get about AI in education, or what's the most dangerous assumption they may share with you? Because I think we're all here, we've been discussing, and we all are biased, and we may assume certain things again through our cultural, social lens. So, what have you heard?
Sure. A lot of things. Education is dear to my heart. I really enjoyed Temi Tope's explanation of what's going on in Africa regarding AI and education. So I recently read a tweet that says that, there will be no people going to school or work within 400 days. That within 400 days, nobody will be going to school, nobody will going to work. And so it's sort of this prediction, and a lot of people in Silicon Valley are making a lot of predictions. A lot of people all over the world are making a lot of predictions. But I think the fundamental misconception that most people have is that bureaucracies, large institutions are somehow going to disappear. I definitely think that there are going to be really important battles, and I think the bureaucracy and the nation state are sort of in a start of a transition that will make them much less relevant in the future. But that could take a long time. And I think a lot of the predictions, particularly coming from Silicon Valley, are part of this accelerationist movement. And it feels like there's we as a human species, we're one species. And we have a whole bunch of nations, we have a whole bunch of cultures. Within cultures, we have a whole bunch of cultures. So we have a lot of subcultures. In the United States, it's been very interesting because we had the 1960s, which had this mainstream culture and then counterculture. And now in the United States, it feels like that mainstream culture, the big tent, all those things are starting to break down. And now we have a whole bunch of subcultures. And then the rest of the world has kind of been paying attention to what's going on in the United States. And, in the same way that the Roman Empire had a lot of influence around the rest of the world, we have people pay attention to what's the cultural trends in the United States. So that is reflecting out to the rest of the world. And so we're kind of entering into this new territory brought on by the information age. We're now solidly inside the information age for probably about 1 to 2 years. And now it's just fracturing. Everything's fracturing. But that doesn't mean the bureaucracies are going to all of a sudden disappear. They're not I'm actually in Argentina, where there's a strong political push to actually remove a lot of the bureaucracy. But I was just my cleaning lady from Peru. We just had a conversation where the bureaucracy of the lawyers, she hurt her leg, and so they found her through all the documents to make sure that she could get the money back, or that she could sue people to go to their employer. So it's I think there's a lot of crazy predictions going around, and I think because it's really exciting technology, but it's kind of like there's this hype versus reality thing. And definitely LLMs are really important. Robotics are really important. Now I see, hopefully I'm not going too far away from your question, but the robotics thing is now becoming the hype thing because the LLMs, I sit with it every day. I've run into this technical problem over the past 2 or 3 months where I am banging my head against a wall because the AI cannot be the universal verifier. It cannot verify the technicalities of what I'm trying to do. And so I have to then guide the LLM. So it's not AGI. It's not even close to AGI, but it's really important. So now people are starting to realize that. So now it's moving into robotics, humanoid robotics. And I think humanoid robotics are so far away, but they're so hyped. That's how they get the money. That's all these strange complexes. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much for sharing. Then we can actually dive into this topic of AI verify, and that this is just impossible right now. It seems to be impossible for the biggest AI models to verify data, I'll say, automatically, right? So can you share on that and how it would also impact education? Because, obviously, we're talking about different potential professions, that we touched upon this Temi Tope, and also overall educational system, because if we don't have universal AI verify, how we go into, let's say, test students just with AI, specific subjects, right?
Oh, super interesting. So yeah, so OpenAI, as I was saying in the chat, OpenAI was trying to look for a universal verifier because Silicon Valley, ever since really around 2006, has tried to remove the human from the loop. And so I basically, because I don't like the philosophy behind removing the human from the loop, I don't think it's actually going to work, and I think it's misguided. I don't no longer live there, but I grew up there. So they want to remove the human from the loop. So the universal verifier was this attempt to, how do we get a universal verifier to not just verify whether the code was right or wrong, because you can do universal verification inside of coding, inside of these test infrastructure we've had for the last 40 years. You can do synthetic data verification of whether the code was right or wrong. You can do that. But you can't verify whether the code solves the problem, because the problem is a human domain. And so OpenAI basically tried to find this universal verifier. They can do it in math. They can do it in coding. They cannot do it in physics. They cannot do it in robotics. They cannot do it in real world problems. They can't do it in education. They can't do it in subjective feelings of taste. They can't do it with judgment. They can't do it with vision, human vision, philosophical vision. They can't even do it with reasoning either. Reasoning is a really bad term that they used inside of the thing, because it's not reasoning. It's like a machine version of reasoning. So we have this sort of, they can't do it. They're not going to be able to do it. And so what does that do? Well, it requires all these companies like Mercor, Turing, Surge AI, Invisible Technologies. I used to work for them, Scale AI. These guys have already encoded the entire internet, brought the internet, and every time you use an LLM, you are querying the entire internet for the relevant parts of the internet for that in each query. It's a vast simplification of what it's doing, but that's basically the idea. So they've gotten all that training data into the internet, and we've run out of internet. We don't have another internet. And so these guys are basically becoming this place where they hire physicists and they hire all these people to slowly build out this sort of universal verification layer. And it's going to take a long time. I mean, maybe in 20 years, we have all of the possible knowledge of human understanding of the physical world and universe we live in, but it's going to take some time. So education, where does education fit in? That's really interesting. I've always been a sort of a heretic when it comes to education in general. I never made it really well through the education system. I'm not very good at taking tests. I'm not very good at being verified. And so I've always had it out for the education system. And I do think that now is the time to basically radically change the education system, because we can't be competing with robots. So, and Silicon Valley, San Francisco, the philosophy there is that they compete with robots. They at some point want to like remove the human from the picture, and at the same time, they're in subtle competition with the robots. Socially, like they sound like robots. There's not much humanism in Silicon Valley, basically. And so they're doing this weird thing where they're trying to compete with the robots, but at the same time build the robots. And I don't think that's the way. And so I think there needs to be humanistic education. Maybe it's going back to the 1500s. Maybe it's going back to the 1600s, this humanity. Most people don't know that from the 1500s until Napoleon, before the Enlightenment really got going, there was this sense that if you wanted to be highly educated, you needed multiple languages, you needed a deep understanding of history, you needed this like poetry. And then once Napoleon took over and sort of created this vast European empire and standardized a lot of things, he was really into the scientific method. Nothing wrong with the scientific method. I love the scientific method, really important. But at the same time, technocrats became the technocrats, engineers, they became the arbiters of truth, of science, of all these different things. And now, guess what the AI is good at? The AI, just like Temi Tope, hopefully my understanding of what you said is accurate, like that's going to be taken by the AI. The AI is better at coding. So that's like the technocratic thing. Now what's important? Critical thinking, but critical thinking is an overloaded word. Imagination, multi-threaded attention, being able to jump from one thing to the other. And guess what? How to convert your ideas into language. How to actually get the language and the expression, the poetry. poetry, the way to jailbreak the LLMs, you can jailbreak it with poetry. That's how you tap into the secret, like understanding that's hidden inside of these matrices. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for this passionate response. Very interesting because indeed, as you're saying, we are right now at the crossroads, and it depends on the AI builders, governments, and parents, and also, yes, students and graduates, how we're going to shape the future of education. And what I see that teachers, a lot of teachers are quite afraid of it, right? Different countries, like all same. And a lot of them just saying, no, it's bad, it's just plagiarism. Yeah, we discussed a little bit, yeah, that was going to help her. But still, there are teachers who would like to learn more about AI, how to use it. And I think that's great because this, again, helps us to understand better how we can integrate AI as a tool in our everyday life and also in our learning process, right? As an assistant, always as a tool, as an assistant, because I think it's so important to distinguish this. Because I've met so many people who had this misconception that AI is becoming a companion, but it's not, right? So, and we know all the cases, drastic cases where young people, especially school children, were exposed to not well-trained AI bots, and then this actually drove them to certain actions. Well, we're talking about at least all cases as well. But then while discussing this crossroads and looking at AI builders and then educators, well, I know from my own experience while building apps and platforms that typically there's a massive gap between, let's say, founders and then tech founders. But in this case, talking about AI builders and educators, are they kind of living in parallel universes? Like, is there any bridge how they can collaborate together and create something that would be good for teachers and for learners?
Are you talking about the gap between founders, technology founders, and ed tech
Yeah.
founders, or okay?
Or like technology founders, tech founders, and of course, and educators, right?
And educators. Oh, got it. Yeah, that's an interesting question. So there's giant gaps. In order to the word founder is really interesting because founder goes like it's part of this Silicon Valley thing that happened where they try to go back to the U.S. founders or the foundries, so there's a very unique U.S., particularly Silicon Valley thing. So if there are founders, it's very like dominated by this accelerationist technology. And although I do share some of those things, I am a founder in that sense myself. I'm also sort of a contrarian in that general world and think there's a lot of things wrong with this accelerationist philosophy. But as a part of that accelerationist philosophy, they, as I was explaining, they're not part of this humanistic frame. So they don't see, they envision a future where it's like the human's out of the loop. It's like this is kind of what Violetta was talking about in the beginning. It's like transhumanism thing. And so they don't see education as having a point, right? It's like, well, why would you educate a human? The human's not going to be there. Like, what are we doing here? So there's a giant gap, but that's part of it. That's a generalization of the founders. I'm sure there's a lot of founders. EdTech is so interesting. Andrej Karpathy, one of the OpenAI guys, just quit his his education thing because 3 years ago he rightly saw this is going to revolutionize education, and now he's gone and joined Anthropic. But that's part of it, just being a really good engineer. The difference between being a very good engineer and a founder, which is a whole other thing. So to get to the actual question, like, yes, there's a giant bridge between it. And so I'm an educator myself. I love to teach. Okay, yeah, it's perfect because basically, so I'm doing these workshops now. Let me just show you here where we're building these ESP32. This is an ESP32 with a long range antenna on it. It's basically a computer with a way to communicate with everyone else in Buenos Aires who has these long range antennas. And then I've got this guy. We just showed people to build our first robot. This is the very basic idea of a robot is a servo motor and a computer. And I got a whole bunch of other ones, but basically what I'm doing down here in Buenos Aires is we're teaching people how to build robots. And part of the reason I'm doing this is because I see Silicon Valley doing this thing, and they're going to create robots, and they want to own the robots in the same way the foundational models sort of own the LLM. And I want nothing to do that. I personally don't want to buy robots for them. I want to own the robot. I want to know how to build the robot. Well, what does that require? And I want to give all other people the ability to do the same thing. So basically, sovereignty, the ability to own the whole thing, not only the physical robot, but the software that goes on this computer. And it's the same thing that I'm realizing, like LLM's so hyped. Everybody's like, oh man, this is gonna be so amazing. And it is amazing, but it's amazing at like 1% of what's being hyped. And so what I'm realizing is that like the hype is just this giant thing, and nobody's really interested in sticking with the foundational principle things. And that's an education piece. So the education piece is just like returning to the basics, returning to principles over and over and over again. There's this beautiful, actually one of the first apps that I built with the vibe coding, because I'm not an engineer. Vibe coding allowed me to use my language to create applications. And so the first one I created was a spaced repetition software, which was a replacement for a pretty poor piece of software that everybody uses for spaced repetition to learn Chinese or Japanese or all these languages. Languages are really, like repetition is going back to that humanities part, repetition is so important for learning languages and coding and all these other things. So I've built that application because, and spaced repetition is this idea that if you have all the stuff we're talking about in this conference now, 90% of it will be gone from each of our brains. We're all taking different parts of that 90%. So some of it will be in Ekaterina's mind, some of it will be in Violetta's mind, some of it will be in Mage's mind, different parts of the same experience. But 4 days later, we only have 10% of what we've learned here. If we have a reminder on the third day, then we get like 30 or 40%. And then the more you do that, the more retention. So if you do spaced repetition every day, you can retain everything. So I built this spaced repetition app because it's such an important part of education. And so it's just really interesting the way that hype and fear and there's a bunch of other emotions, but hype and fear are really this thing I think that's preventing us from seeing clearly. And so education is really important to basically, you can't do any, like if everybody's on a hype train, if everybody's like listening to this hype, you're not going to convince them to stop listening to the hype. All you can do is share your message and educate and teach those who are willing to learn. And so we've got a group here in Buenos Aires who are basically building robots every time. So yeah, hopefully I didn't go too off topic there and answer the question.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing. It's exciting. And talking about all this hype and fear, when we talk about incorporating AI in education and actually somehow challenging the, let's say, outdated formats of education, which new formats of education you foresee?
Cool.
Like, yeah, you've been running a podcast. It's also one of the formats of education. There could be some sort of conversational, unscripted, human. There are so many different ways. Like from your perspective, let's say, being from the US and also living in Latam. So, what would be the most? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and before you had asked that question about the podcasting for me has been a way to learn. I reach out to people who teach me something on social media. I reach out to them. Most of my guests I just find on social media, and they seem like they have something interesting to teach me and teach the audience. And so it's been my personal vehicle for learning. And it's funny because in 2018, 2019, when I started, everyone's like, you got to focus. You got to like take this giant world and take a little small piece of it. And I understand why they say it, because it's the same thing of like, if you just start with the whole world, nobody, like you need a framework, you need to narrow down something. And it might have made it easier to grow the show, to focus on one thing because it's something that people's minds can grasp onto, and that is important. But at the same time, then I would have to sacrifice my curiosity for all these other things. So a podcast is a really great way to learn, both for the person starting the podcast, for the people coming onto the podcast, for things like this in the conference and everything like that, for the audience to enjoy a journey through curiosity and everything like that. So that's definitely one way. The other kind of interesting nuance there is whether a lot of people try to script conversations or script a podcast or do all these things. That is not going to work for very long, because now basically if you can put it into a script, an AI generated podcast will do that script better. And there are AI generated podcasts. My podcast is never AI generated. There's nothing in it that's AI generated. That's like podcasting is definitely part of education. I think as relevant here, and maybe to get into the question of like, what is a form of education, is that we now, with the LLMs, I think Temitope was talking a bit about this as well. We now have private tutors who are better than any private tutor, not in the sense of being a teacher, like Temitope was talking about, not in the sense of like, it's not replacing the teacher. The teacher is a really important part of it. But you do have this sort of private tutor who's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And for the most part, will give you a pretty good answer as long as it's in its training data. It's a really fun historical side note we can go on. Descartes, one of the best philosophers in Europe in the 1600s, he was the private tutor for the Queen of Sweden. And so he moved to Sweden at the request of the Queen of Sweden. And he did his philosophy from when he would get up in the morning. He wouldn't get up. He would stay in his bed until like noon, and just like thinking, doing his philosophy, doing everything like that. And that was the way he did it. Queen of Sweden invited him to Sweden to become his private tutor. And she wanted to meet at 5 a.m. every morning. And so he started going to these 5 a.m. things in the dead of winter in Sweden. And he ended up catching some sort of cold, and actually he died because the Queen of Sweden wanted to meet at 5 a.m. So basically, we have these private tutors who are like can teach us an amazing amount of things. But what can't they do? They can't be that companion. They can definitely simulate parts of being a companion. They really cannot do something that's really important for various times in our life, which is calling us out on our own BS. They can't play the sort of tough love that's sometimes needed in the education world, and in that sort of thing. And that's partly because the LLMs have been trained in this way to always provide the sycophantic answer, because if you're doing a mass product, it's really hard to grow that product. No, not a lot of people want it, the tough love thing, but the tough love's really important, particularly in education. I guess there's another thing here before I'll get to the form, which is that there's the idea of one-on-one teaching. We now have this one-on-one teaching that our systems, our forms can't give us, right? Like our model of education is based in this 19th century Prussian model of education, very related to the Industrial Revolution, where it's like you get a group of people, a group of kids into the same group at the same age, all in order to keep them busy while their parents are at the factory. And that model, that form is definitely, I don't see that lasting very long. But go back to what I started with, the bureaucracies, the whole, like the US nation state with our Department of Education and our state-funded education and this complex web and the welfare state, all like those things aren't going away. Those things, they might go away in a longer period of time, but they're not going away in the next 5 years. They're not going away in the next 10 years. Like these things are so foundational. These things just don't disappear. Like this tweet that I heard, like 400 days, nobody's going to school. It's like, maybe that happens, but it's like the entire US economy is based off of the system. Like I just don't see how that's possible. So a new form definitely will arise. There's some other interesting experiments in this sense. There's a school called Alpha School in Austin, Texas. That's interesting to track. I forget exactly what they do, but it's like they integrate AI very specifically into it. They make it really hands-on. They give you real projects. Like going back to this stuff, like I love teaching this stuff because it works or it doesn't work on, it turns on, you can communicate with somebody or it doesn't, sort of like off on, going back to universal verification type of thing. It's like, it's very like, okay, it works or it doesn't work, hands on, like, does it solve the problem? Very practical things. And in many ways, like our education system is very, very far away from doing practical things, particularly as Temitope was saying, like, we're teaching people that are like stuff they will not need to know. And that's probably a huge waste of time. And maybe it was already that way in the 90s and everything else, but yeah.
Wonderful. I just shared a link to Alpha School. So if anybody is interested, have a look at it. Wonderful, wonderful. A lot of thoughts, a lot of insights. One of the follow-up questions I have is about indeed the way how we fine-tune AI bots that are tools, but they're also accompanying children in education. As you were saying, if we make them too human-like, so there's this danger that children get attached to these machines. But then if we go more towards robotic style, we are also risking to turn away the users. So what's your take on this, and how do you see it here in education?
Great question. So yeah, robotics is going to play a really important role. I'm not sure there's a solution. I really liked what Violetta said in the beginning, which is just like, you can do transhumanism, but you do it off planet. I really like that idea. Like, do it on the moon, do it on a space station, keep Earth the way as an ecological environment. But the robots are coming. I don't think Silicon Valley has the wisdom to do it in a way. I'm curious about China, whether China has the wisdom to do it in this way. I don't think the nation states themselves are like can have wisdom in this sense. So I think it's going to be communities. I think like this is going to be very much a question at the community level of families, of direct known associates. This idea of like the Facebook of 2010, where it's like, we're going to grow to 1 billion users and everybody's going to use this app, or, we're all going to be like Napoleon, Napoleon's going to take over Europe, or we're going to, create a one world empire. Those types of things I think are not going to survive very long. And so at the community level, it's really important questions to wrestle with. I think as individuals, we also need to sort of do our hard lines on what we're going to accept into our own lives when it comes to this transhumanism question. And the transhumanism question is coming very quickly. There's interesting, like this robot is a very, like this guy, like the emotional resonance of this thing is like metallic cyberpunk, like just kind of data. But if I were to put a casing around this, and this is what I want to get into, is I want to build robot art that basically makes people not as afraid of him. Because the Silicon Valley people, it's just like Eric Schmidt got booed in front of, a lot of young population in my country, in the United States. They're very anti-AI for good reason. And it's because these guys are going on television telling them they're all going to lose their jobs, that they have no role. Like it was just such a weird thing going on. So what I want to do is basically, like, that question is coming. Transhumanist question is coming. It's up to us as individuals and communities to basically define the red lines. Other people are going to define those red lines in different ways. There's no sort of reason to go in and make hatred or fear or anything like that, but there's going to be very stark differences between groups of humans. And so in my world, I'm not going to be a Luddite. I'm not going to say I don't want any more technology. I'm not going to cut this out of my life, but I am going to mold it in ways that I find are appropriate for my values. I'm going to find other people who have similar values, and we're going to basically combine our powers to do interesting stuff. And so I think it's very much a individual community investigation into what is real. Things change, so any answers that we come up with now won't be relevant in a year, 2 years. The pace of change itself is starting to pick up. And so there's just going to be a lot of decisions that none of our ancestors prepared us for. Education can prepare us. If we go back to the greats of history, of humanities, of like reading what these people think about reality and life and philosophy and spirituality, we can learn a lot of those things and we can apply them. But they didn't, like, you're not going to go back to Descartes. Actually, Descartes has one of the best tests for what is artificial intelligence. He actually, in the 1600s, him and Thomas Hobbes basically came up with verification criteria on whether artificial intelligence is artificial or whether it can replace human intelligence. I suggest anybody look at it. It stands true to today. But like a philosopher is not going to be able to tell you like how to look at a robot or what kind of robot you want in your life or how all these criteria. They're just not going to be able to do it. But we can lean on them for wisdom because they definitely have wisdom. And so, yeah, robots but I think it's just the whole discussion right now about robots and AI and technology, particularly in my country, is so binary. It's like right or wrong, true or false, but there's so many shades of gray between it. And so I think we have to just in our experience as we move through this, essentially learn in real time and maybe cross lines in order to not cross those lines again or to understand what those lines are.
Wonderful. Thank you, Violetta. You have a question for Stuart?
I just would like to pick up something that he said, no matter how much we are in this hype right now for AI, I think we're still at the first phase, so the foundations are being set. So it is worth discussing all the foundations. Like Stuart, you've really opened up many of those basic questions. And one of them is absolutely the one that you referred to as well. I'd like to re-stress it and have additional question for you, is why do we want robots or androids look like human beings?
Yeah.
And I mean, the only motivation I can see is this transhumanism direction that could bring us on board much easier. But do you think, Stuart, that there is a room for legislation which will actually claim or actually require that robots and androids could not resemble human visualization? Because of course all false emotions get then developed because we're so sensitive, we are perceptive. So if the machine looks like us, if we want or not, we will start evolving in a sense towards some sort of emotional attachments. But if we see, like, I always wanted to have robots that are like boxes, then I will always understand that that's technology and it can provide all capacities and all the knowledge and everything we've discussed today, but it will not confuse people and keep them, in the right level of relationship between technology and humanity. So yeah, I'd love to hear. I mean, I would go for legislation, but I don't know if that is a thought out there and if anything like that is being discussed in AI communities.
Yeah, brilliant question. Just give me a whole bunch of ideas. Hopefully I'll get to the whole, I should have taken notes because the legislation question, I'll come back to that. The robot form factor is really interesting. And I hadn't thought about it until you asked this question about the form factor in humans. I think Asimov's law thought through a lot of these questions in the 1950s and the 1960s. He didn't talk about the human one. He didn't talk about the fakery, the illusion of being a human. I think it's really important. The uncanny valley, in our videos and the deep fakes about 10 years ago, the big problem was uncanny valley. It looks like a human, but it's so subtly different from a human that it looks like a demon. And that is a really important thing to think about because we now passed the uncanny valley. We can make things look like human. And that, I think your fundamental point is really important of if it looks like a human, our ancestors had well, I won't go to that, but our ancestors basically were not able to, are just expecting that the only other human-like thing is a human. Very important questions. The the form factor itself is really interesting. I actually don't think the form factor of a humanoid is anything but hype at the moment. And I think that's for very practical reasons, which is that one of them is the economic thing that you're training these robots to replace humans who have hands, but in a place like India or in a place like Malaysia, it's actually very cheap to hire humans. So to do the manufacturing and everything like that. So it's going to be a while, not only for the actual robots themselves to make sense at a $5 an hour, $10 an hour type of thing, but the training, the robotics training, it's not like the LLM text training. It's a very, very different thing. A lot of people, there's a great video by a guy from NVIDIA recently, Jim Fahn. He thinks that they found it. We could be 10 to 20 years away from the type of training algorithms that give us the ability to give humanoid robots to visualize the physical world and then can move in it and do things and pick up things. We might be close. Maybe I'm wrong on there, but I like your idea better of like the box robot. Like, what about different forms of robots where they in a factory they solve one really expensive problem? To make this really clear, I saw a great video of a guy who, an electrician who had one workflow that he hated doing of like cutting wires and stripping wires and doing all this different thing. So he got a robot arm to do that one thing over and over and over again. But that's not the question we're talking about. We're talking about like human relationships, human robot relationships. I think it's so dangerous of this sort of like mimicry. But I think it's going to happen. I think it goes back to that other thing, which is just like some groups are going to make those decisions. And unfortunately, on the legislation side, we live in one world. That world is now globalized to the point where, particularly in the world of software, it can't be stopped. So LLM training, the China to the US thing is like the Chinese labs are basically distilling what's going on in Claude and basically immediately creating new good models. So anything in the software is going to work like that. And there's a really important thing called RISC-V. RISC-V is the instruction set for computers like this. That and robotics, because a robot is just a computer with an actuator, a motor. So it was headquartered in the United States. It's now been moved to Switzerland with a lot of influence from China and the people who created the RISC architecture in order to get it outside of the United States where the United States could regulate on those things. So regulation is really tough because now we live in such a globalized world. So I don't like Europe's going to try to regulate. I do think that they learn the most about how to regulate things. I do think that it's important to regulate things. United States is sort of like this in between Europe and China, where US kind of regulates things, but very in a pro-business way. And if you're a business, you have all the rights of a citizen. So there's no possible way to actually regulate the businesses in a lot of ways. And then China, where it's like sort of full-on free market capitalism with a state that supports whatever it takes to get China as a dominant nation state. But the cool thing is you got a whole bunch of other nations. Those other nations, I think, are where we're going to see a lot of interesting regulatory environments. But for those of us in this room, it's like, well, where do we live, right? Like, and like, what are the regulations that? So I think the movement of people, like, we have to. If the regulation is important to people, I think they have to think deeply about where they are living now. In the United States, we have a federal system and a state system. So there could be interesting states that do sort of regulation in this interesting way that does account for it. But yeah, I think we're in a Wild West type of situation where we're headed. So I'm not sure the regulation will actually be able to do it on a global level for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Serge, for your rich insights. We will be moving now, from Americas to Europe. So literally like picking up from you to move to our answer. I think, all those questions about the forms of robots and regulations and our responsibility, how we develop AI, how we influence the laws around AI and robotics, and especially in education. That's all in front of us, and we'll be tackling all those issues in the following years. But it's good that we are really discussing them, and then we can bring those insights further on to AI model developers, builders, and their people with a lot of influence. But now let's jump in. Aranza, please take the floor. I'm aware that you would like to make a presentation. We can do both. We can start with the presentation if you'd like, and then we can follow up as well with questions. What's your preference?
If you don't mind, maybe I can start with my presentation. Would you like to say a little bit about what I am going to talk about, or what is my background, because it's different from maybe other speakers?
We introduced your speakers at the very beginning, but yeah,
Okay,
for sure we
perfect.
can we can
Okay.
definitely put, because we have here more on geopolitics and consultancy
Okay.
and European experience. But feel free to share whatever you'd like before actually sharing the presentation.
I'm so sorry. I was working during the whole day. I didn't have the time to be here from the beginning, so I'm sorry for missing the other colleagues. As he was saying, so my background, I did my research on the politics of artificial intelligence, and as Stuart was saying, I'm going to talk a little bit about this global framework, the possibility of having regulation or not, and what is like the map of power globally. So, if I may, I would like to share my screen.
Violetta,
Okay.
Violetta, does Aranza have all the rights? Yeah,
Is it
Aranza,
okay?
can you share? Yeah, share.
I'm
You-
trying to parallel.
Do you see share next to raise hand?
Yes, but I cannot do it. I don't know why, because maybe of privacy.
Marina, can you check? I think you are the host now.
Maybe if not, I can share with you right now the link.
Well,
Marina?
the multiple panelists can share simultaneously, so you can just press the share button and.
I'm doing that, but I don't know what. Maybe here.
What does it say?
It says open the configuration of the system, but it.
Oh, something is happening. No, Stuart is sharing his screen.
Okay.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. Teamwork. Good.
Yeah, apparently
Okay.
it's working, isn't it? Or
Perfect.
is it not me? Yeah.
It's Stuart. Yeah, it's Stuart. But Aranza, go ahead
Okay.
and you can come on to Stuart and he will be switching slides. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you we start with the first one. Today I would like to talk a little bit artificial intelligence, education, and what I have called the new geopolitics of knowledge. I will try to explain what it means. When we talk about education, I think maybe the debate is mostly focused on privacy, on data protection, student rights, even how we learn, academic integrity, pedagogical effectiveness, which are all those things are really crucial. But there is a dimension that is largely being overlooked, maybe, which is the geopolitical dimension of artificial intelligence in terms of education. So that means asking mainly 4 questions. First, who controls the AI systems that we are using at schools or at universities? Then, whose data is used to train all those systems? Thirdly, whose languages and cultural contexts are embedded in those LMs, for example, or models? And which countries and companies are setting the rules for the AI that is being used in education? So when I say geopolitics of knowledge, I mean that who controls all those things I have talked about. It's important to understand how the education system is being shaped. I think that we should also talk about all those things. Most efforts on artificial intelligence in education have been centered, even at the international level. For example, UNESCO, they have public guidance on AI and education, and research making emphasis on other things, but maybe not this. So passing on to the next first slide. Thank you so much. As I said, so when talking about AI in education, there are a few examples all over the world of countries that are a little bit mindful in those terms, that really care about what type of AI systems are being used, in which model they are trained, and things like that. Starting with the first image, which is about the example of China. I believe that China is the clearest example of a country that treats AI in education as a geopolitical and national strategic priority. In 2025, for example, China launched AI plus education action plan, and they made AI education mandatory for all primary and secondary students, starting at age of 6. And the main focus of Beijing is also to develop their own AI models, model classroom, and national AI learning systems. They are trying to make the society AI literate, but they are also trying to make this on their own terms with their own systems. And this should be reflecting on Chinese curricula, languages, and policy priorities. Moving on to the next image, it reflects the example of United Arab States, which is a regional power in terms of artificial intelligence in general, and this is also reflected in terms of education with and AI. They are making the United Arab Emirates are making a conscious effort also to build sovereign AI. But they are also cooperating with other nations, especially the United States, but also with China. They are making huge investment in terms of AI compute, talent, and models, and this is also reflected in the education. Moving on to the next image, we can see the case of Japan. When it comes to Japan, the main effort is primarily focused on regulation. Next, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, and Technology have developed different guidelines in order to help both universities and schools to use AI tools. But the main models, for example, the main systems are from the US. In Asia, another big example is South Korea. South Korea is also treating AI education as a national a strategic asset. The government is invested a lot in AI talent and expanding AI education. But the model is again based on US models. Moving on to the next, so going down and starting on the left side, we can see the example of Spain. I have been, because I normally do presentations about all geopolitics, but because this time I had to talk about education, I did a small survey among the people I know. For example, my cousins who are at university, or some of them even at school, and then I asked them what they are using. And there was no surprise for me that they are using old US models such as Notebook LM or Gemini or things like that, or of course ChatGPT. And that includes also, for example, the teachers. Of my friends are teachers, and they told me that the system, I mean the ministry, is financing the private license, for example, of ChatGPT in Spain. And there is also, I put here also, yes, to talk a little bit also about Jordan and Arab state. In Jordan, there is also a huge effort when it comes to AI and education, but again, it is fully dependent on US models. And finally, I have put here one study which is about how middle powers can or are trying to avoid this over dependency on both US or the Chinese models, because they are because the AI race is basically a race between the US and China. And just below, you can see some of the main, so like the private companies that are the ones that are developing these AI tools in education. Baidu in China with ErnieBot, also Alibaba with the cloud, Anthropic, Google, Microsoft, and so on. Moving on to the next one, thank you. This is the global map of power. The source is Stanford University, and here they have tried to figure out what are the main powers in terms of states. As I said before, the AI race is mainly between the United States and China, but behind that, there are other countries such as the United Kingdom, for example, in the third place, India, I mentioned before, United Arab Emirates, France, and so on. But as I said, the race, this is a dual race between the United States and China, and there is a big gap between those two superpowers and the rest that might be considered middle powers. Moving on to the next one, please. Sorry, yeah. My colleague Stuart, he was talking about a little bit about the AA system. When talking about the United States, I had, for example, the chance to talk to the US delegation at several summits. And they, the rest of the world is very much interested in regulation, whereas the US delegation, or maybe the Chinese delegation, even when they are present, but they will never, for example, sign up the declarations or be willing to commit to some kind of regulations, because they are at the forefront, and this is a competition race. So that there is no, they don't see how they can win with that. They don't see how to win if the regulation is undermining all the efforts. So from the point of view of the US government, it is mainly, okay, the private companies, they can regulate if they want, because then if you talk to Microsoft, because they have to give or to sell their products to Europe, who might be very interested in regulation, then they are going to regulate in that context, or they are going to regulate in another context according to the priorities of the seller, of the buyer, sorry. But in general, they think that this is something that should depend on the private companies. In the United States, the ecosystem of AI is led by the big techs, Microsoft, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, NVIDIA, because you also have to look at the whole chain of the AI ecosystem. There is a massive investment from the state, which used to be something more typical of the Chinese, for example, government. But now this kind of industrial policy is becoming very popular among even democracies and among countries such as the United States. The Trump administration has delivered the AI action plan, and they have, for example, they have also delivered some roadmaps such as the winning the AI race. They know that they are the first superpower in terms of artificial intelligence, and they want to stay like this. So the model and how do they see how AI should be used? It's a market-driven model. It's also very marked by the advances of frontier AI, as Eric Schmidt, which we have quoted before, has pointed out. He has said that this might be a disadvantage for the United States. And they are also trying to find an alignment between the tech, the academia, and the government, which is something which is natural, for example, to countries such as China, to non-democracies governments. And this is also a strategic advantage, and that is why they are trying to pull everything together. There are some struggles, for example, now with the case of Anthropic and the Pentagon, as you might know. The second power right now is China. the model of China is based on decentralism and the state control of strategic companies such as Beidou, Alibaba, Tencent, Huawei, SenseTime, and so on. There is a civil and military fusion, which is something more specific to the Chinese model. Another idea is that they are also like it's an ecosystem that is trying to implement AI in every dimension of the economy. And another thing is that the Chinese government has said that 2030 should be the year that that China overpasses the US as their first superpower in terms of artificial intelligence. The Chinese model is a security-driven model. As I said before, it's very much integrated into economies, not so focused on AI frontier, for example. Then, just to say a few words about the European Union, it's a very fragmented ecosystem. It's relying on the regulatory power, so they have a say when it comes to the rules, but not maybe when it comes to the language models. They have the AI Act, which is been implemented in all type of areas, including education. A few other examples that might be interesting are the UK, India, when it comes to especially because of the influence in the so-called global South, and the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. And we have to bear in mind also the fact that when it comes to artificial intelligence, tech company, that is private companies, do have a lot to say in this. The big techs, but also the funds, the sovereign funds and global funds, they are also shaping the ecosystem of artificial intelligence. Moving on to the next one, just to say a few things about the global framework. The global framework is still very, very much fragmented, and there is a proliferation of national and sectoral standards. There is, as I said before, there are different approaches. The US, it's a market-driven system. China is a state-controlled system, with a lot of focus on control, whereas, for example, the European Union is much more worried about individual rights. And there's also Japan, which is in between. Japan is defending a model which is based on soft law in order to find some common ground, which is basic common ground, and then the rest of the rules should be voluntary. So there is a trend towards proliferation of frameworks and a risk of regulatory fragmentation, but there is also some windows of opportunities. When it comes to the multilateral system, the main efforts are being taken by the United Nations, but unfortunately, they have failed at finding or at being able to find a consensus to create a global framework. There is a high-level body, there is a technology envoy, there is now a global, there is a debate since September 2025, there is a global debate on governance on artificial intelligence, and they have recently created a panel of experts, like following the case of the climate change panel, and the first those experts are monitoring the evolution of artificial intelligence, and they are going to deliver the first idea in this summer. I think it's in June or July. And from that point on, it comes. So it would be the states, the member states of the United Nations, who might be eager to do something regarding that or not, which is the most probable scenario. Just to point out a few more examples, so the OECD is also giving basic the AI principles, which are again something voluntary, non-binding. The same with the UNESCO, but the UNESCO is a very interesting example because they have maybe afterwards I would say a few words. They have delivered a few guidelines when it comes to education. The G7, they have Hiroshima AI process, which is also based on voluntary principles. Again, from the global south, we see mainly reivindications of global sovereignty, the right to technological development, and this has been claimed, for example, at the AI Impact Summit recently in India in February. Then the Council of Europe is the only body that has developed the first framework, which is binding, but it hasn't. But the countries have. There are not enough signatories for now, so it's not. So right now, it's not working. And finally, just to say the last one, please. Okay, so when it comes, for example, to the international order, there is artificial intelligence is becoming a structural factor of global power, which and it might be compared to other factors such as the military or the economic powers, and it's also very much embedded into those ones. There are many risks which are also important for other fields like education, biases, surveillance, or disinformation. And the most probable scenario, it would be like or the block-to-block competition, or maybe managed competition. That meaning that there would be like a minimum consensus on the most basic things, or most probably nothing. So again, the four questions that I raised at the beginning of this speech: who controls the knowledge? So I have to go back to the main big techs: OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Anthropic, Alibaba, but also Alibaba, Baidu, and Tencent, mainly in China. Who controls infrastructure? Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Nvidia. Who controls the knowledge? So basically, in English-spoken countries, there is some U.S. dominance, and mostly also in Europe. And then there is the case of China, which is a little bit more individual, and there is a rising power such as for example, in the Middle East, that are making efforts in order, specifically in terms of the language, in order to train large models in Arabic. And who controls the rule? This is a little bit more multipolar, but at the same time very much fragmented. And the final one, if so, thank you so much for your attention.
Oh, fantastic. Aranha, thank you so much for such a, geographically diverse presentation. And still, thank you so much for assisting, making it happen. Aranha, you talked a lot about different regulations, right, and their potential risks. And you're looking at it through the perspective of European Union and also geopolitics, which is fantastic. And at the very beginning of a roundtable was saying that we are bringing together people who are looking through different lenses, different domains at their topic of AI and education. That's why it's so fascinating. Well, you're now bringing together all this information. I could see Major China, just looking at everything that you were sharing about China, because we talked about the government initiatives starting last year about AI that she wasn't sure about. So that's fantastic. So one of the first questions for me would be, when we talk about regulations and all, what is responsible AI for you, with your background, your knowledge, your experiences, looking at the policy networks in Spain, EU, Asia that you've been extensively working with? So how do you understand it as well on personal level? How do you see it in education? What would it be as responsible AI in practicality?
Well, I believe that responsible AI might be different according to the field. For example, when it comes to, I had a chance to be at RIAM, which is the summit on responsible military use of artificial intelligence. That took place in February this year in Coruña, here in Spain. And they used to define, or they used to pay more attention to the fact of being responsible as they said, like AI should be responsible by design from the very beginning in every phase of the construction of artificial intelligence and also execution. So I think we have to pay attention maybe to all the phases. And in the military field, it was also important to, there is an expression which is called human in the loop, meaning that the final, the accountability, for example, when it comes to, in that scenario, we might be thinking about the autonomous weapons precisely because especially because there is no regulation. So the human in the loop means that there has to be an accountability, and the final decision should be human. When it comes to other fields, for example, when it comes to education, I think it should be the same in the end. It's like I guess that at the beginning when internet, or when we started to have access to internet, maybe people would say, oh, now you are not doing your essays yourself, you are copying from Wikipedia or whatever. So now it would be the same. You can use artificial intelligence in a Socratic way, I might say, like asking questions and questioning yourself. So it's like you need to make yourself responsible of the final answer. So just don't give it away. So use that answer, or use that tool to make it yours. And that for me is like to be responsible. And if you were using, for example, AI in education, you have to be very mindful of those questions. Apart from other things, where do I get my LM, my language model? Is it what type of bias there can be? What kind of cultural context? Is it my context? Is it someone else's? Is it trained in another language which is not mine? So I think you have to be responsible for all those things.
Wonderful. This is super interesting because, as you're saying, there are so many questions, right? And there are so many variables how we can actually evaluate what is responsible AI and how to use it, what to. Very interesting. Then jump into your experience about AI policy, like policy in general, and also, yeah, you've been working a lot with that. So Violeta is not currently active, but yeah, probably she'll hear us. What's your take more on AI policy from the European perspective? Because yeah, you shared in the presentation quite a lot what's happening across different states. So what do you think like about Spain? What I've noticed that Madrid as capital is pushing forward with AI Digitalization Week, trying to push Madrid as one of the AI hubs in Spain and then in Europe. Barcelona, obviously, is leading in terms of startups and also AI applications, and 11 Labs, which is a huge AI company, brought their offices to Barcelona. So AI is moving very fast.
Yes.
And then we have with you AI policy. So what's your approach to your policy? Because obviously when you're consulting, you're advising, you talk to governments, different embassies. So what's your approach to this? How do you marry the practical part, right? And then the legislation, and what can we expect in the following years, whether in Spain or somewhere else? Yeah.
Well, there is a big, complex debate on that, on all those things, because in the end, there's not one simple answer for that. So when it comes to Spain, well, I think it was my second slide that I shared. The first Stanford University, and I say, okay, this is the map of power. Stanford University has two types of tools. One of them is the map of power. It's called the AI Power Map Ranking, or Power Ranking, which is based on how do you exert influence through AI all over the world. That was the map I showed. And then there is like another type of tool, which is called the AI vibrancy tool. So if you look at the case of Spain, Spain is not among the 10 AI powers. It is not there. But if you look at the privacy tool, which is based on the ecosystem of artificial intelligence, not how if you are exporting your language models or things like that, but just your ecosystem and how AI is working in your own country. So Spain is ranked, I think it was the 7th. So it's there, it's in the map. And there is something else which, I know a little bit more, the diplomacy. Spain is very, very active in terms of artificial intelligence. The mindset of the current government is to push through regulation. Not only in Europe, but in Spain, they are very much worried about the privacy rights, about avoiding abuses at the school, about making. So they are not, they do not reject the technology at all, but they want to know how this technology is helping students in a respectful way, trying to avoid any type of abusing, trying to respect the privacy of the students and so on. So they are very much concerned about that. Then there is the debate on whether you should put more focus on regulating more and therefore maybe protecting, or you regulate less and you let the companies flourish, let's say. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find the middle point between this tension. You want to protect, but at the same time you want to run and you want to be competitive. And sometimes it's not that it's not as it's difficult. For example, take the example of recently of Mythos and Claude. They have avoid launching this model Mythos because they think it's too much advanced and they want to shield some companies, or they didn't want to launch this into the market and see what happens. I mean, if the information is correct, because we still do not know. But that might be also like the point of view of Europe, putting a lot of effort on protected, but at the same time, now there is a big debate. They have the AI Act, which is based on risk. So according to the risk level, but at the same time, because there is this level or this need to be competitive, now they are trying to reevaluate the impact. And they are, for example, it was supposed to be released this year, and then they are going to give more time for the companies to adapt to these rules. So it's not easy at all. So there is this tension. And in the end, the AI rights is multi-layered. So you might be better here or better there. And you want to put emphasis on what? On frontier AI, more on your ecosystem. So it's a very complex issue. But as far as Spain is concerned, I would say that there is it's very active in terms of diplomacy. It was precisely Prime Minister Sanchez who launched the debate at the UN Ministerial Week in September, because Spain was co-facilitator of this debate. So there is a big intention. There is a willingness to push towards regulation, but at the same time, of course, there is also they are very much mindful of the fact that they need to be competitive and try to make efforts to do, for example, in terms of AI compute, because they are a little bit lagging behind and so on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Arantha. It's so insightful to see how we also, how we advance in the EU, because one of the big issues here is about privacy and GDPR and all the risks, because here EU is always, let's say, too cautious, right? And then we have China, and then we have US, and then we have Africa, and then we'll have with Dave, New Zealand, and like far away countries, which is fascinating just to compare and see what's actually happening. And how it all influencing education. So I liked that you mentioned cybersecurity, like cyberbullying, right, privacy, all these parts, because we haven't really touched upon them today as much as we wanted to, because there are so many topics around AI and education. And I can see that Maish has a question. Yeah, Maish, or a comment, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Actually hear a lot about like AI education in China. I actually, as a Chinese, learn a lot. Thank you so much for the sharing, first of all. And also, I'm quite curious because there are so many regulations in EU, like for a company, when we try to get into EU market, we need to be extra cautious in EU. So we need to do lots of like legal regulation stuff and works, right? So I have like relatively harsh questions for that, because we also noticed that like there are non-models, really, large language models or in EU. So do you think the regulations actually sort of like stop the developing of the large language model like originally in EU countries? How do you think about that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I know that when it comes to compliance with the AI Act, it's so difficult that you need to hire an
Yeah.
expert to understand. The AI Act is based on 3 levels of risk. So according to that, it is going to enter into force in different on different dates, so let's say maybe the requirements are bigger, the bigger the risk is. And then yes, I think that the main thing is there is an ecosystem in the European Union, but and there are some examples of large models, especially there is Mistral in France, and I have just forgotten the name of another one in Germany. Sorry. So there are a few, but they are not as powerful. I mean, they are not like DeepSeek or ChatGPT. I mean, they cannot compete with that. Like they are by far much more, much less developed. So it's like that, and I think it also has to do with investment. It has to do maybe with the fact that we did not start doing the research before, but maybe there is the difference of 1 digit in the when it comes to the US investment, and if you compare it to Europe, it has nothing to do. So it's like we in Europe we are investing so much less than the US, who is at the forefront, and in the European Union, I mean, if you want to have an European investment, it has to be approved by all the countries. That is 27. And even the whole budget of the European Union accounts for 1% of EU GDP. So it's not that much. It's very difficult for the European Union in the end to make that kind of large investment. There have been some exception that, for example, during the pandemic, but it has to be like a big crisis that is perceived as much by the member states, so that they allow, in this case, the European Commission to allocate this type of investment. So for now, the investment is mainly national, and at the European level, it's they are creating gigafactories, and they have an AI action continent plan. But compared to the investment made by the US, it's not that much.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I think like
Thank you so much, Yamich. You wanted to say
Thank you.
something, yeah.
yeah, because I think like all the European languages, they are really beautiful. So I used to study in Europe before, so I really hope that like we can somehow like preserve, and also wanna also chat in those beautiful language when I'm communicating with a large language model as well.
Yes. Yes, it is something that we must we must bear in mind. And they are, well, they are trying to get there, I guess, but they are still lagging behind. So there is a big gap in these terms, and so it doesn't mean that it's like in the Industrial Revolution, you know. So there are some countries that might be at the forefront at the beginning, but maybe this changes in the future. But I don't know. We shall see how this type of technological revolution evolves. But for now, the European Union is not. It's only a big players in terms of regulation. I don't think in this type of so fast evolving technology, I don't know. It does not count that much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Aranza. Well, that's been wonderful. And I think we've seen, let's say, the limitations and opportunities of Spain, Europe, yeah, and then compare them to other countries in the space of AI, and also how it influences AI and education. Thank you so much for your informative presentation, for your experience and knowledge. And now we'll be moving from Europe to New Zealand to Dave. Dave, thank you so much for staying with us for your night. It's almost like what is 4 a.m. right now. What is it?
3:15 a.m. So hopefully my voice sticks around because I've got a bit of a cold. But
Hello.
tēnā koe, tēnā koe. To Aotearoa, New Zealand. Aotearoa is the Māori name for New Zealand. The last place on earth to be populated by us humans, a place of strong bicultural values, and so education and bringing this both European lens along with the Polynesian lens around education is something that I really wanted to touch on here. I've got because I think Stuart sort of touched on where I'm coming from as well. I found education when I started at school was quite challenging for me, and I was left quite traumatized by the experience, having spent my preschool days sitting on the doorstep of a very old Native American Indian who just spent his time telling me stories, and all the children in my neighborhood wanted to be Indians. Nobody wanted to be a cowboy. Um, so I think that experience of sitting there with that very old man who had lived through some amazing times really focused me on the power of storytelling. And so this is part of what I want to work through my experience crossing over different silos in my life from leaving school as a game designer and looking at game design in education and therapy and as a socialization, the importance of play. But finding myself while I was offered a partnership in a game company, I ended up in a government computer centre with a mainframe computer in the days when there were punch cards and ticker tape, and it was all rather large and boring. But that experience told me that it taught me that my problem solving game design skills had a place within technology. And technology, of course, over the years started to develop. We got the desktop computer, we got the World Wide Web, all of these things. So I've kind of lived in a world, in two worlds. One that is based around creativity and art and the visual area, music, poetry, and the other one where technology comes into it as a tool and something that we're always children to because of the advance of technology is so rapid that we're quite naive in our application. I always say it's not the application, it's the application of the application That's the challenge. Whether that hammer is something that you hit somebody on the head with, or hammer a nail in with. It's how we apply these things. So I might, if that's okay, jump and share my screen. This is more a visual clue for myself and just to wander through this journey. So, right, hopefully that's popped up now. So, yeah, oh, slide two. Oh, that's right. Slide two. This is, I just looking at my table. I have 5 children and 6 grandchildren. And so in this later part of my working life, I've turned my focus to my grandchildren. And recently, one of them turned 5, and I brought her this 300-piece jigsaw puzzle. Thinking about what I was going to talk about today, life is a bit like this jigsaw puzzle. For me, it has been 300 pieces scattered across the table, slowly turning pieces over, looking for patterns, finding edges, and kind of filling out the picture, starting to develop that. So I just go to the next slide. Oh, come on. I just to jump back 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago today, I was trying to solve a problem. And I had a technology company, although I'm not a coder, a writer, I'm just an ideas sort of a guy that surrounds himself with smarter people. And anyway, I was looking at the problem of identity of who we are, where we are, and what we're doing. And I built what become known as the governmental model, governmental reciprocity model, um, and developed visual recognition technology that's now used on a lot of phones, most commonly known as QR codes. And what I'd actually secured was a process patent for the process of connecting encrypted identity. Now, to jump through to how this is relevant to education, at the time, apart from being in an all of government think tank and designing policy and tools that would help design policy, I was also approached by our Department of Conservation, which looks after a third of the country, which is conservation estate, but has a very small budget and a fairly small staff. And their challenge was, how do we get people back into the environment and understanding the environment? And my suggestion was, I think I can give the forest a voice. I can allow it to talk. Just to put that into perspective, I had prior to this been an interactive drawing therapist at the National Brain Injury Unit. So neuroscience, how the brain works, how we connect with things, how we end up iconizing things, and and can almost lose sight of what we're looking at, was all sort of a factor of my thinking. In connecting people back with nature, my counterintuitive approach was to use technology in a natural environment to break our thinking patterns. What happens when you're walking through a forest and a tree starts to talk to you? You notice it. It's no longer just a tree. It is something that is sharing something with you, whether it's science or it's biology or whatever. Anyway, I undertook a research study with Auckland University of Technology, Vodafone, and and one of the mobile phone companies at the time, and presented this at our National Museum, at the Digital Forum, and then here in Taranaki, where I live underneath this amazing mountain, I presented the idea of the Inside Out Museum to our museum here. Anyway, moving on from that, I just, I've jumped up to slide 6, have to go backwards. I popped this on here because it came up in the conversation. Gordon Dryden and Jeanette Voss wrote Unlimited, the new learning revolution. So that's a book that you might want to look up. It was the fastest selling book in China in the mid 2000s because of the focus on education and learning styles and the need to learn how to innovate. So this book is another one of those jigsaw puzzle pieces that clicked over to me, that was helping me think about how we learn and different modes of learning, and you know, the right and the left hand side of the brain. What happened was that the authors of the book approached me to say that they produced this book, and they want to gamify the book. How do we go about doing that? So it's something that I worked on. Anyway, moving on. Prior to COVID, I had designed an urban village for Christchurch. And Christchurch City, my hometown, as some people might know, suffered a terrible earthquake that destroyed the inner city and a lot of the housing areas. So I pulled together a group of Polynesian, Māori, and eco architects to design a modern day village based on biomimic design, nature design. And through that process, we got into the final 10 out of 1,000 entries from around the world. But we were cut out because our design was too innovative for the Innovation Challenge, and it was too Māori for a conservative English city. So this is where it sort of gets to where I'm coming from in this, in my little bit of my presentation, is that I could see that we weren't really innovating. And how are we going to adjust our thinking and deal with the challenges? How are we going to adjust our education system if we're still stuck on this, as somebody mentioned before, the Prussian model of making little robots and sending them out to work? Having 5 children and 6 grandchildren, I was frustrated by having our design turned down. So I wrote a story called Wobbly Town. And Wobbly Town was a Dr. Seuss type story that was about a town that was under the control of a very short little mayor who decided every building had to be bigger than the last building so he could stand on top and look down on everybody. And gradually the city went into darkness until it became a cold place where the children left the city, walked out into the country. 1 drop of child H2O was all it took for magic to grow. That teardrop of water caused a little plant to come out of the soil. The children noticed the plant, noticed the ants, noticed the snails, and thought, let's go into the forest and build our own town. To cut a long story short, or 5 long stories short, as it turned out, the children built a biomimic town in the forest. The concrete town that the adults now lived in had an earthquake, just like Christchurch. It cracked. They didn't know what to do. The children sent them a text. As they poured out of town like a pot pouring tea to a marvelous sight, what did they see? This town in the forest. The adults remembered their childhood, remembered play, and they worked with the children to create the new town. And what I got from that was the need to start to tell stories that are both around creativity and imagination, but linked to science and exploration and driven and drive curiosity. Within the metaphor of stories, we can allow a child to go through different journeys. A story by itself is fine and good, and it's wonderful when parents spend time or a teacher spends time talking through a story. But conversations with a man I met prior to COVID, Robbie Stamp in London, who's been one of our guests on our other panels, this particularly on AI, took me into the world of Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Dr. Seuss, Carol Lewis Carroll, sorry, and others, and started to really look at the power of storytelling and invention and creativity. Alongside the stories that are in book form, there's also the stories that are in the outside world. And that's what I had done with the talking forest. I'd given a voice to the tree. And so the inside story and the outside world are very complementary. And the idea of the inside story is to take storytelling from passive consumption to action and well, driven by curiosity, to get out and connect with the real world, to become indigenous to place. So, next slide. Come on. Yep. Oh, that's jumped out of that one altogether. Hang on. See if we can find it again. Are we there? Can you see that?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Oh, sorry. For some reason, it's not allowing me to just jump through the slides. Oh, okay. I just carry on talking then. Okay, so we got to the point where I sort of looking at storytelling and able to give a place a voice with the advent of AI and distributed systems, distributed architecture. I realized that I can take that tree and that conversation with that tree, that talking tree or object to another point where we can have a conversation. And that's where the AI comes. So in that picture, there is an image of my granddaughter, Micah, standing under a 2,000-year-old pōrere tree. That pōrere tree has its biology, its science that it can tell you about, because you'll be able to ask it questions when you connect with it through that stone that she's standing next to that has a chip in it. And it has its mythology. The pōrere tree in Māori mythology is the link between the earth and the heaven. And so what they used to do was that they used to sometimes put the bones of relatives as they passed away inside the tree, and it would connect them up. It was kind of like a tombstone. And so using AI in a way that helps connect us to place, to story, to depth is really part of the part of the process. I really want to be able to move this on to the next slide, but maybe I can do this. Sorry, it's a bit slow in this presentation. Okay. I'll just jump out of that now. Oh, there it is. I'll go past that. So anyway, getting back to it. Sorry about that. As I was looking at the architecture as a system, I was looking at how we gamify our connection to community and how our community is connected into nature. Because in my time involved in community development, also looking at the relationship of having inclusion, designing a platform that works for the 4-year-old as much as it works for the adult. And so it's our relationship to our head, our heart, and our hands as an individual, what we think, what we feel, and what we do. And as far as our head goes, where we are in the present, standing under that prairie tree and stimulating our sensory system, the past, what we reflect on, and the future, thinking about where we're going. So those are 3 different modalities of thinking. And then there's the federated identity that whereas as much as we're part of ourselves as a person, or tiki taha is a Māori word, we're also part of a hapu, our family group, and we're also part of an iwi, which is our tribal group or our community. And so there is a relationship between who we are, where we are, and what we're part of. And this is all part of our education thing. There's a relationship between our identity within the home and the family and our other identity within the classroom and the school, our school friends, our identity that we have within the clubs, and how we weave all of these things together. The other aspect of that is our connection to the physical place, to the digital twin, and the spiritual aspect. And with talking to Robbie Stamp around the work of Douglas Adams, the importance of being able to tap into science and factual information, and the importance of balancing that with creativity and fictional stuff. What I added on here also is an example of the Green School, which is just down the road from me. The founders and the builders of the Green School came to see me when they had this initial idea of building a school in the country and having the children plant the trees, help with building and constructing. They constructed, learnt how to build the first compostable toilets and whatnot. But at Green School, every day for the young learners, they use a story. They start the day with a story, and the story allows them to come up with a theme, and then they're outside in the environment connecting. And so this is just an important part of that process. So I hope this is making sense, and interrupt at any time when I'm sort of drifting off. Is that I started to think about how we start to build a tapestry in our community, because learning for me is not just the formal aspect of learning, it's the informal learning. It's the learning outside the classroom. It's the learning when we're with family. It's the learning when we're walking through the forest. It's the learning when we're up in the mountain, at the beach, playing a game. All of these opportunities are for learning. And so within the framework, I've designed a system that feeds back the data of the breadcrumbs of our experiential learning to the individual and to the family group or to the classroom group. But I won't go into that sort of stuff because I want to get down to the AI bit of it. And so with AI, and I'm calling it assisted intelligence, using AI in a pilot location, which is our park in the central part of the town, which is one of the top 10 parks in the world. So that prairie tree sits within that park. Now that tree, while you can walk up to that tree and learn about its mythology and its biology, you can walk up to the tree and it will sing to you. It will sing its biology, because this is where poetry and music and creativity can come into the whole picture. That tree is not just an individual tree. That tree has a relationship to the ecology around it, both the ecology and the history of place. And so this is where the AI comes in as a relational agent that says, okay, so the information around the prairie tree has been collectively gathered by local Kaumatua, which are Māori elders for the mythology, local botanists and scientists, our local regional council staff, our interpretation staff, the friends of the park, the archaeologist. I walked around the park recently with archaeologists learning about the history of the park. And so AI is there to assist in connecting these points of information, because the part of the idea is not to see things as isolated and individual, but to gain a sense of the interconnected nature of things. And this is where Te Ao Māori comes into it. It's unlike us Europeans that arrive in a place, we look at a forest and we look at the trees as something to mill, cut down, and turn into a commodity. Māori who come here and see the interconnected and relationship of the world. The mountain, the manga that I live underneath, Mount Taranaki, was the first mountain in the world to be legally personified as a living thing, because that's the way that we look at the world. And AI can help assist us in understanding that interconnection of things. If I tapped on that, it would take me, if Micah put a phone next to that rock, it would automatically trigger this soundtrack. And so this soundtrack, we wrote the mythology after the research, and then we used AI to generate the soundtrack. So this was a productivity tool, but what we want to do is actually pass that piece of music onto somebody within the community to say, here is a song, would you like to perform it? Because all of these places within our community, this tapestry that we're starting to unfold, it's all populated by local knowledge and contained within an architecture of local knowledge. So we're not reaching out to a wider network. And that's important as far as, and I don't know, Hansa, you sort of talked about the different models. This is a model that's driven from the community up. It's security is in its architecture rather than its policy. And so the architecture ensures that there's agency and there's sovereignty and there's attribution to the owners of the content or the purveyors of the content that have helped populate what is a growing community tapestry. Now, where am I? This is just more snapshots of the park, and with an architecture that we're starting to gather these wikis, these multimedia resources, and they can endlessly grow and develop into deeper meaning and further complexity. Um, as mentioned, and I'm losing my voice, community. This is everything's driven from the bottom up. I recently met a chap called John Scholl, and I've put a link to his work because his work has really delved deep into the architectural framing that works for Indigenous people throughout the world. That is a different framing and architecture to what we see coming out from China. Although China's got some really 80% of it's really good stuff, but it's, as you say, it's from the top down. It, um, and quite different to like the American model, which has got a slightly different intention, bigger, faster type stuff. But you've sort of gone into more of that sort of stuff. This here is guided by rangatiratanga, which is self-determination, authority. Part of we have Treaty of Waitangi, which was the agreement between the British and the Maori that that gave recognised the sovereignty of Maori people over the land, over the laws, and over the sea and the sky. Although it's been debated ever since, and the architecture for this in terms of AI is also guided by tikanga, which is customary Maori practice, a way of relating to things in context of the person, the place, and the purpose. So these are kind of like guiding principles as far as the architecture goes. Where do I go from here? So yeah, this is like a bit of a word cloud. I just like finish up here because part of my whole thing is really my concern around the impact of social media isolating young people and some of the psychological harm where we can actually turn that around and use it to empower youth and empower education. And so when we start to look at AI, understanding, detecting hallucination, avoiding bias, being mindful of cognitive unloading, allowing the AI to do all the heavy work for us instead of generating our own muscle, building in plurality, excuse me, inclusion, agency, nuance, curiosity, relational, depth, perspective, structural constraints, sovereignty. These are all aspects that we're sort of thinking about in this. So there's a lot of technical stuff that I won't get into, but I can link to all of that as far as the AI architecture. I guess the gist of this is that there is great benefit in looking at an indigenous and for me a Polynesian way of viewing the world, Te Ao Māori way of viewing the world, alongside the European way of seeing the world as well, which is very dominating and very much a left brain thing. So I'll stop talking because I run out of voice and I'll jump out of here.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation connecting humans, nature, education, AI, limitations, challengers, all of this. It is such an interesting research about music of the trees. And I'm wondering whether Violetta, you'd like to share a little bit in your few thoughts or any questions for Dave on this interspecies communication.
Well, I was wondering if you have any concrete experience how to bring this into the formal education system, and have this been tried in Australia, and how, if yes, how was it? How was it received? Because I think it's a very profound way of bringing high level of sensitivity to humanity, and it would have been an important step. But have you experienced anything like that in practice?
Yeah, when I started to consider the power of storytelling, I teamed up with one of the lead teachers at Green School New Zealand. Um, and I teamed up with Green School because Green School was given the opportunity of breaking free from the constraints of the traditional education system, allowed to do things a little bit different. Even as far as our local council, the shock of children building a toilet was like, I'm not sure that we can allow that to happen, health and safety, blah, blah, blah. But Green School is all about experiential learning and of course, is in the name connection to nature, but also strong connection to culture. And so, in the early part of this, which is only a couple of years ago, really, um, what Gemma Chambers identified was that there was no really strong link between the what happens at school and what happens in the home, and how they can, and this might be a model for how they can overlap better, um, because um, because there is kind of a digital twin overlay there. There is an opportunity to gamify and feedback, um, how we build our brainwaves, how we build our heartbeats, and how we build our agreements through handshakes in a way that a young child can understand, and that a parent can look at and see the journey that the child's taking, and then go on a journey in the weekend where they're connecting with the forest or nature, local park, or doing things. They're also contributing to the child's head, heart, and hands. And so there's the individual thing, and then there's the family thing, and then the family, how the family interact with each other. So I've actually created sort of an economy system about this as well, because in looking at the challenges of creative people, um, the big platforms have taken all of the value away. And so we want to bring the value back into community, because moving here to this community, having been in other communities, I found the same people involved in all of the volunteer work, the planting trees, the beach cleanups, looking after the park. Same, either very young or the retired people. There's a bit of a disconnection. So it's it's a process, and I've recently so I've just been weaving and connecting the dots, turning over the jigsaw puzzle pieces, because this is a collaborative exercise. Um, it's not, while I've written a dozen stories and illustrated a dozen stories, it's only examples of how the variations can help sh shape our creative thinking. And because what's really important to me is that as we go into crisis, I don't want children to freeze. I want them to feel empowered that they can do something about it. And they feel empowered when they start to understand the place that they live in. They become indigenous to the place. If you walk into the forest here, now I can walk into the forest and I know what plants are healing. I know what I can eat. Um, and I can look at the roots and I can see how resilient the trees are when the winds and the rain come. So I live in a very privileged place, and that's a responsibility.
Thank you. That brings a lot of hope.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you so much, Violetta. I believe it's time for us to wrap up this wonderful roundtable, this conference. Thank you so much, everyone, for your contributions. Been extremely insightful. I've gone across the world, literally. Dave is already in our tomorrow, on 21st of May. Mate, you're
I'm in your
almost there
future,
too.
so just ask
Yes,
me, and I'll tell you what's
indeed.
going to pop along.
Hopefully, the future is looking bright. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time, energy, and enthusiasm. It's been fantastic. The session is recorded and it's going to be shared with all the registered attendees and participants because not everyone could stay for all the hours. So thank you so much for staying for the entire event. I know it can be quite tiresome. And yes, as I mentioned, all these insights are going to be shared later at the end of the year, so of next year, in the book dedicated to AI and education. And Violetta will share you all the information with Eco-Civilization. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, all the speakers, co-moderators, attendees, participants. It's been a privilege, such a thought stimulation session, so many insights. And later on, yeah, of course, I'll follow up with all of you and we'll have more enrichful discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to you, Ekaterina, for leading the whole mini conference so adequately and with so much ease, and bringing on board together with Marina all these great speakers. So as you mentioned before, this will be now shared as an entire session on Eco-Civilization page and on YouTube channel of Eco-Civilization. But as we usually do, we will take the snapshots of your key messaging and we will publish that along with the link to the entire session on social media in the next couple of weeks. So we're hoping that all of you will participate in a creation of the book for next year. Why is that so important? Because we're learning from year to year that it is important to get a snapshot of understanding of the certain era in a relationship to a particularly important subject, and then build from that point on. And today, again, we've heard hands-on experiences, but at the same time, these visionary steps forward where we could all get inspired and learn from. So I'm also very grateful to be able to get such a powerful session on the topic of AI and education challenged. And I'm sure we're going to continue to build on that. So thank you very much in the name of everyone who is behind the scene also supporting this series and making sure that it really at the end culminates in a good book. We just launched a mental health book in April and just got now we're distributing printed copies, and in June we're launching the Leadership Challenge book, which was also the discussion last year. So hopefully next year the AI Challenge book will be out as well, and you're all invited, of course, to participate with your contributions and then receive the book. Thank you very much and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye from Madrid.
Bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Arela.